Alright guys, let's get started on year 3 for the 2-bit review. What do you got?
Alright, here's what I got. Megan Fox, Christian Bale, Charlie Chaplin, Steven Spielberg, and the legend himself will be fucking Goldberg. Alright, so what we do, they're making a new film together. And guess who's involved? None other than 2-bit Jesus. Alright, so you walk in the room. Alright, shirt's off. Hair's covering your nips. You're looking good. Belly's showing. We'll draw some abs, don't worry. It's look good. So, then there's Megan Fox. Looking sexy, naked on the bed. Right next to her, guess who? Whoopi Goldberg, naked, looking sexy. That's when you walk in. Dick's ready to go. All of a sudden, Steven Spielberg jumps in the room. But guess what he's always been? From Jurassic Park. You know why he made that film? Because he's a shark. Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it? He comes in there ready to chomp away. Chomp, chomp, chomp. All of a sudden, you're like, grab the first thing you can. Your weapon, Whoopi Goldberg. You smash her. Smash him. I don't know. You smash somebody. I love it. You love it. We all love it. Everybody loves it.
Well, alright. Drew, what do you got?
I'm a mannequin.
Alrighty then, Jonathan, my last hope. What do you got?
Alright, so first 2-bit is gonna he's gonna find a meteorite and he's gonna touch it and it's gonna give him the power to review video games in outer space, and he can breathe in outer space, and then he's gonna meet an alien, and the alien's gonna come and he's gonna put an implant in his brain. It's gonna make it to where he can play any system and any kind of system in any kind of game that he ever had ever.
Okay. Well, you know what? I quit.
Wait, what? What? Why?
Because I'm frankly tired of all this. Our stories have become too complicated and convoluted. I started this channel to talk about video games, and I feel like we've gotten away from that. And honestly, most people don't even show up for their lines. Me and Jonathan have to record most of them, and when we do that, we have to use crude animation. My kids run at the sight of me, and my wife is disgusted by my very touch.
I know, she tells me every night.
And honestly, what do we have to show for it? You know, we have just a handful of viewers, and most of them are us. There's only one that actually shows up and watches all of our videos who isn't us. You know what? I'm done with this. I have one more review left in me, and it's going to be the series I started with. I'm reviewing Streets of Rage 3.
2-bit, are you sure you want to end this? I mean, things were just really getting good.
Yeah, in fact, my idea of a living hell would be trapped in a basement somewhere and forced to play and review video games.
Sounds like a couple of girls I know. Well, if you're serious about this, why don't we go out with a bang, like the way it originally was presented? 2-bit Jesus, play Satan, doing a review together.
That's how I always wanted it to be. Let's do this.
Fade to him. I mean, nothing, Grandma.
Well, here we are. 2-bit Jesus,
Where are we?
play Satan.
How did I get here?
I invited you. You said you were going to do it with me. My last one.
Oh yes.
This is it. My last one. Gonna
Sorry,
retire.
I've really been drinking
after
a lot.
this. Yeah. It's fitting that we end it here. And so with that
I hate
said,
to see it end.
Me too. But as you saw in that meeting,
Clip?
that clip that I was not happy.
I almost felt like it was edited together and then put on YouTube.
Yes, it did. So anyway, let's jump into the tidbits.
Streets of Rage 3 was a side-scrolling beat-em-up. Lots of boobies, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Somehow I just knew you were going to be behaving this way, Play Satan, so I brought in a friend to help. Everybody please join me in giving a warm welcome to Pete from On a Retro Tip. He's going to be doing the tidbits, and then joining us later on to give his final thoughts on Streets of Rage 3.
Streets of Rage 3, or Bare Knuckle 3 in Japan, is a side-scrolling beat-em-up published and developed by Sega for the Sega Genesis. The North American, European and Japanese versions were released within days of each other in March 1994. Aside from being the last instalment in one of the best beat-em-up franchises in gaming, Streets of Rage 3 has some weird tidbits in regional differences. When Streets of Rage 3 was localised from the original Japanese version, significant changes were made. The clothing of Axel, Blaze and Skate were altered from their original colours seen in the previous games, and the female enemy characters wore less revealing outfits.
Wait, what? They wore less revealing clothing? I want all my ladies to be sexy. I want my women sexy and my men flaming. Where's Blaze and her taunting me with her sexual ways? Why isn't she winking at me like in the first one?
You need to get out more.
I'm so lonely. I like your long hair.
So let's get back to the review.
And the sub-boss Ash, an outlandishly gay stereotype, was removed from the English language versions.
What?
I bet you know how to make a gay person come out.
Oh yeah, well you get the controller, you put the code in and... Hey, wait a minute! I'm not gay!
What, are you saying you don't want gay people in video games?
No, it wasn't like that. I didn't mean it like that.
Kinda sounds homophobic. Or that you're repressing some homosexual feelings?
Back to the review.
So, yeah. The voice effects were also changed, most noticeably Axel's catchphrase Grand Upper for his semi-special move being replaced with Bare Knuckle. Another difference is the plot. The Japanese version of the story opens with a new explosive substance discovered by a character named Dr. Gilbert, aka Dr. Zan, which explodes in the city and kills thousands of people. At the same time, a military general named Ivan Petrov vanishes. It is later discovered that Mr. X orchestrated the general's disappearance and plans to use this explosive to start a global war. In the English version, all references to Raxine the explosive are removed, General Petrov is replaced by the city's chief of police, and the plot now involves a scheme to switch major city officials with robot replicants in order to take control of the city.
You know, let's just get Rick Deckard in there and he'd solve the problem real quick if there's a bunch of robot replicants.
Yeah, or that new guy, Ryan Gosling. No?
Let's not get him.
No,
he'll just show his sexy abs. And Blaze won't be mine anymore.
Why are there a lot of differences in between these versions, you may ask? Well, as most of us already know, the early to mid 90s were a tumultuous time for video games, with the US Congress posturing to regulate the video game industry in reaction to more mature games like Mortal Kombat and to a lesser extent Night Trap, rising in popularity and becoming more prevalent on home consoles. Because of this, Sega self-censored its games in reaction to this pressure. The game's difficulty was also altered. The English version's normal setting is significantly more difficult than the Japanese version's hard setting. Also, the English version of the game cannot be completed on easy, instead ending after stage 5. This was very unusual, as if anything the norm was for Japanese games to be the harder versions, as developers in Japan thought that higher difficulties would put Western gamers off. So with these tidbits out of the way, let's bare knuckle into this review.
The gameplay, like its predecessor, is solid. The controls are smooth, responsive, and most importantly, fun. It is very satisfying to beat the crap out of a bunch of baddies on the screen. This formula still holds up great, even in the franchise's third installment. Are you alright, man?
Yeah, I just really like to beat up Donovan.
Why's that?
I don't know. All Donovans I know are pieces of shit.
Yeah, especially that because he's bald, wearing sunglasses, no shirt, freaking ripped in his blue jeans and boots.
And he's hung like a horse. That's all Donovans are.
Wait a minute. Is all this information in the game?
Now, the Western port's high difficulty curve does bring down the fun factor in some aspects, but overall it is a fun experience, just with a few frustrating sections added in.
The game does make minor improvements to the Streets of Rage formula. Streets of Rage 3 is more fast-paced than its predecessors. Running and vertical dodge moves were added to the game. The level timer has been replaced with a power meter that, when full, allows you to perform special moves without losing life. Unlike the first two games, weapons in Streets of Rage 3 can only be used a set number of times, meaning they have their own life bar. The game brings back Streets of Rage 3's team attacks, which means two characters can work together to perform more powerful attacks. Pitfalls are back from the original game as well, meaning you can throw enemies once again into pits or off the side of an elevator. The AI was improved, with some enemies being able to pick up weapons, block, perform cooperative attacks. Usually a Big Ben henchman will throw one of the Garcias at you. They can now even steal exposed food items to regain health. Three of the playable characters from the previous games return: Axel Stone, the balanced fighter; Skate, who is by far the fastest character. Dr. Zan replaces Max from the second game as the tank character. With a twist, any weapon he picks up turns into a ball of energy. Adam from the first game makes a cameo, and Max only makes a cameo in the game's good ending.
And of course we have the best character in the game, Blaze Fielding, who has a better special attack and also is more agile. Sadly, she's not wearing the sexy outfit from the second and first one.
Back to the game. Three of the game's boss characters can also be unlocked through cheat codes. The first sub-boss, Ash, Shiva, Mr. X second-in-command from Streets of Rage 2, and Rue the Kangaroo, who can be unlocked by defeating his master, but not him in their boss battle.
Of course, this is what we always wanted to play in a fighting game, is a giant kangaroo. I mean, what kid in the 1990s didn't want to play a giant kangaroo beating up Donovan?
That kid. Shiva, Rue, and Ash are unable to use weapons, though.
The bosses, a main feature of any great beat-em-up, are sort of lacking in this game. They are there and give you a challenge, but I feel they aren't as memorable as, say, the levels themselves. And a few of the fights feel like repeats from Streets of Rage 2, like Mecha Shiva and Mr. X. But the final boss, Robot Y, is pretty great. It's a nice change of pace compared to the Mr. X fights from the previous two games, though I still think the Mr. X fight from the first one is probably my favorite.
All in all, though, the gameplay at its core is still the same as Streets of Rage 2, with a few adjustments to improve what was already a solid gameplay experience. Streets of Rage 3's solid and fun controls combined with the high difficulty curve give gameplay 3 bits.
Bare knuckle!
I would disagree slightly, and I'm going to give it 2.5 years out of 4. That's only because of the high curve in difficulty and the lack of sexy Blaze. And also, it just wasn't as memorable as 1 and 2. And I don't know what it is, but they will always outplay this game.
The game's soundtrack was composed by the returning and awesome sauce composer Yuzo Koshiro. Madahiro Kawashima returns as well, who worked with Yuzo on Streets of Rage 2. The soundtrack in Streets of Rage tradition features influences that were popular in nightclubs at the time. For the soundtrack, Koshiro created a new composition method. It was one of the most advanced electronic music creation techniques at the time, incorporating heavily randomized sequences. This created innovative experimental sounds generated automatically. The game's soundtrack is solid,
but I feel it comes just short of the bar that Koshiro set in Streets of Rage 2. That's kind of a personal opinion, though. It doesn't mean the music is awful or mediocre. It just doesn't stack up to the Streets of Rage 2, and that rocked it way better.
All the sound effects from Streets of Rage 2 are there, and they have the same great quality minus Axel's missing grand upper line. So in summation, we give Streets of Rage 3's sound 3 bits and 3 beers out of 4. I feel this is one area of Streets of Rage 3 that actually surpasses Streets of Rage 2 in some aspects. Not all aspects, but some. I love the use of colors with the sprites. They are just as big and detailed as Streets of Rage 2, but has the dark grittiness of Streets of Rage 1. The cutscenes really add to the narrative of the game, where in the previous titles you got an opening and ending scene with little else to advance the story. In Streets of Rage 3, you get cutscenes for every stage that really progresses the game along. Sadly, because of the censorship in the Western version, some scenes are a bit jarring in the game. The level design, like its predecessor, is solid, with added time limits and objectives for some levels. This is really where Streets of Rage 3 shines, compared to its predecessors. The plot is as follows, and FYI, we have the Western version, so that's what we're going to be reviewing.
After being defeated twice, Syndicate crime boss Mr. X has started a research company called Robokai Corporation to act as a cover-up for his illegal activities. Compared to his legal activities. The world's best roboticist, Dr. Dom or Dam, have been brought in to help him create an army of realistic sexual robots to replace important officials from the city.
Wait a minute, that's not how it goes.
Oh no, it's all sexual, all the time. Mr. X plans to rule the city from behind the scenes. His criminal organization, the Syndicate, has strategically placed bombs around the city to distract the police while the city officials are dealt with. Dr. Zane, who is working with obesity, discovered what the research is really for and knows the Syndicate must be stopped. He contacts Blaze Fielding, the most sexual agent ever, with the details of the Syndicate's plot. Blaze quickly contacts Axel and Adam to help bring down the Syndicate once and for all.
That's not really how it goes, Play Satan. Essentially, Mr. X is up to his old tricks again. He wants to control the city, but this time he's using robot replicants to replace top city officials, and he has planted bombs all across the city to keep the police preoccupied while he does so. It's up to the old gang of Streets of Rage 2, plus the disillusioned roboticist Dr. Zan, to save the day. So yeah, anyway, Axel quickly joins, but Adam can't make it due to his own assignments within the police, and sends his younger brother Skate instead.
Wait, younger brother? That has rollerblades? Like, what type of top secret agent does? That's the worst brothering ever. Hey, let me send my 12-year-old child to go take down the mob boss, because I'm really busy painting pictures of flowers.
Well, I mean, it's the 90s, he has the rollerblades, the backwards cap.
Oh, so cool.
So cool. So rad.
Bitchy.
So our band of heroes sets out across 7 stages to battle it out in the Streets of Rage. The game has 4 endings depending on the difficulty level and if you defeat certain levels in an allotted time. There is the easy mode ending where Robot X in stage 5 is the last boss. After defeating him, you see an unresolved ending with Mr. X that hints at playing the next difficulty mode. If you fail to save the Chief of Police, you play an alternate round 7 going to City Hall. At the end of this, you have to face a stronger Shiva, who is the first stage boss, as the last boss. Once defeated, the screen pans to Mr. X angry, but still alive and in power. If you rescue the Chief, you play the true Stage 7, the robot facility, where you find out that Mr. X is just a brain and is now controlling the robots.
What a twist!
It's always a brain at the end of these games. Every single time. It's this giant brain. Why are we fighting so many brains? And it reminds me of that Futurama scene.
The big brain am winning again. I am the greatest. Mwah! Now I am leaving Earth for no reason.
You are expected to defeat Robot Y, the final boss, within a time limit.
Mr. X, in his last-ditch effort, activates bombs around the city for detonation. If you beat it after the timer expires, the bomb will still detonate, completely ruining the city, leaving you with a very bitter end.
If you destroy Robot Y before the timer expires, the bombs are defused and the city is saved. This is the best and true ending of the game, showing the gang relaxing and Zan appears to be leaving town. The last scene shows our heroes from across the series, minus Zan, reunited together, looking as the sun sets on the city. The presentation in Streets of Rage 3 is the best of the series, with improved graphics, level design, cutscenes in between levels to advance the plot, and multiple endings. This game has a lot going for it, and I think the positives far outweigh the negatives, i.e. some of the jarring cutscenes that were altered because of self-censorship by Sega, or the first level having a huge chunk cut out of it due to, again, censorship. In summation, we give Streets of Rage 3's presentation 4 bits, 4 beers out of 4.
So in summary, guys, I think that Streets of Rage 3 is really worth your time. The game gets a bit of a bad rap, I think, because most people played the first two in their childhood, and the third one came out quite late, so fewer people played it, and it gets a bit of a bad rap. Now, having said that, it's probably my least favourite of the trilogy, but I still play it quite often, and I really enjoy it. I'd actually recommend picking up Bare Knuckle 3, the Japanese version, because as mentioned in the video, there are some regional differences, just makes that a bit of a better game. Plus the Western difficulty is just balls hard. Whoever set the difficulty level on that game is a masochist, so definitely the Japanese version is better for me with the difficulty. Now it's got so many good things going for it. It's got some great level design, it's still got great music, but I do find that the pacing isn't as good as Streets of Rage 2. But I hold Streets of Rage 2 in really high regard. It's probably one of my favourite games of all time on any system of any genre. So yeah, like I said, I think Streets of Rage 3 is still a great game. Great level design, some great music. It's really fun at the end of the day, and that's all you can ask for. So I definitely recommend it.
Streets of Rage 3 is an awesome game.
But it doesn't surpass Streets of Rage 2, with its difficulty level greatly increased, and of course the changes to the Western story plot.
Streets of Rage 3 did, however, I think come very close to Streets of Rage 2 with its multiple endings, the cutscenes added, and of course the presentation, and the various improvements they did to the gameplay and level design. So our final verdict for Streets of Rage for the Sega Genesis is a recommended look for the casual and a definite buy for the hardcore collector of the Sega Genesis.
And of course you can find this on Amazon for about 15 to 60 bucks depending on what you want from it.
And with that, guys, that's it for the final 2-bit review. Thanks for sticking with us for the last 2 years. It's been an awesome ride, and we really appreciate all the love and support that you've given us. And for one last time, stay safe and play on.
Wonder what this does.
What? What's here? Oh! A game! Sweet. Oh, another game! Awesome! Super Mario Brothers 3! What's this? Another game! This is just too awesome! Love games. Another game! Eternal Champions. This will be my 25th copy. Love this game. Holy crap, another game! Dream Master. Well, I'm gonna master you. Holy crap, another game! It's my lucky day. Oh, not so lucky. That's a quest. Holy crap, another piece of game! And looky here, Chrono Trigger. It's my lucky day. Where am I? Where am I? What the hell is this?
Well, well, well. Glad to see you're finally awake. Went to a lot of trouble bringing you here. Oh, don't worry. No one's gonna get hurt as long as you listen to what I say. Now, I want to play a game. So when I say...
Oh no! Screw you, you sick puppy! You better let me go right now! I'll have you know I'm a well-respected member of the community with many friends who will no doubt be looking for me.
Hold your horses. I know more about you than you know about yourself. And I know that we both know that that's not true. 2-bit.
2-bit? What the hell are you talking about? My name
That is not your name! You are 2-Bit Jesus! And this is what's going to happen next. You shall review this game. And when you're done with that, you're going to review another, and then another, and another and another until I'm satisfied. Then, if you're very lucky, I may kill you quickly. Now, I'm gonna give you a few minutes to get camera ready. This game will be reviewed.
What the fuck? All I can remember is reviewing Streets of Rage 3. When I went outside to collect some games, I was captured. Maybe they used a rag or something. Chloroform, maybe?
Well, sounds to me like you finally caught on. Do you think games just fall from the sky? That was me. I know where you live. It was so easy to trick you. But now you're here, and you're gonna do what I say. Or else, stuff's gonna get real ugly.
I woke up here. How long have I been here? A few hours? Maybe a few days?
You're gonna be here for as long as it takes. And if you don't want me to bring your family into this, you're gonna do what I say. Now, review the game.
I'm just gonna have to play along for now, until my friends can find me. Or I can find a way out. Till then, I guess I'll have to review some games. Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast, a first and third-person shooter that is also the third installment of the Dark Forces / Jedi Knight series. Released March 26, 2002 for the PC, GameCube, and Xbox. Jedi Outcast was published by LucasArts. The PC version was developed by Raven Software, while the console versions were developed by Vicarious Visions. Before we jump into this review, let's take a look at some of the tidbits in Jedi Outcast's development. During the Electronic Entertainment Expo in 2001, LucasArts announced that Raven Software would be developing a third game in the Jedi Knight series. You know, I just want to say this one thing before we go any further. LucasArts during this era started to only push Star Wars games and the occasional Indiana Jones game. And sadly, they moved away from the great point-and-click games like Full Throttle, Monkey Island, Grim Fandango, and so on. I wonder what the production meeting must have looked like when Lucas made that decision. Okay, Mr. Lucas, here's how LucasArts has been doing. Point-and-click games are getting rave reviews. Grim Fandango just came out and everyone loved it. It's won awards. Full Throttle should definitely get a sequel, perhaps on the upcoming PS2. And of course, Monkey Island is still going strong.
Yes, but I did just release an amazing film called Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. We've all seen it, and we're all pretty much in agreement that it's the best film anyone's ever made. So, let's just stop making games that make the players think, and instead make more Star Wars games. Honestly, we can just overload them with Star Wars. Star Wars after Star Wars after Star Wars. Each Star Wars game a testament to my genius and greatness.
Yeah, but that doesn't make any sense, Mr. Lucas.
Silence! 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 You know nothing. Isn't that right, Jar Jar? Misa agree, Mr. Big Boss Lucas, sir. Hate you must.
The game uses the Quake 3 engine, and Raven also utilized their animation system from their previous title, Soldier of Fortune 2. LucasArts announced that Jedi Outcast would have multiplayer, but the game was too early in development to demonstrate it at that year's E3. To be honest, they actually had trouble getting the multiplayer running. That is until Rich Whitehouse, a programmer who was brought on to help with the development of the game's AI bots, moved on to tackle the entirety of the game's multiplayer mode, hence why he is credited as the only multiplayer programmer. Now with these little tidbits out of the way, let's force jump into this review, shall we? the gameplay primarily revolves around gun and melee combat. You also have a wide variety of force powers to learn and level up. The game has both single-player and multiplayer modes. Single-player campaign is set in the Star Wars Expanded Universe 2 years after the events of the previous game, Mysteries of the Sith. The plot follows Kyle Katarn as he fights against the Dark Jedi Dasan and the Imperial Remnant. Jedi Outcast allows you to wield a variety of firearms from the Star Wars universe, as well as lightsabers and force powers. The game gives you the ability to use either first or third-person perspective for each weapon, though when using guns, the default perspective is first person, and when using the lightsaber, the default view is third person. The combat is standard for a first-person shooter game, offering you an array of energy and projectile weapons, plus a variety of explosives. You have health and shield bars, each of which must be replenished separately when you take damage. For your health, you have back-to-tanks, and for the shield, you must find these little recharge stations strewn throughout the levels. The core gameplay of Jedi Knight remains, but you can definitely date Jedi Outcast as a post-Halo Combat Evolved title, as to me it's obvious the development team were inspired by some of the mechanics and concepts from Halo in Jedi Outcast. Jedi Outcast places a strong emphasis on lightsaber combat. The game offers 3 lightsaber styles, with each style differing from the others in attributes like speed and damage dealt. There are also combos which are unique to each selected style as well. Force powers such as push, jump, and lightning are available in both single-player and multiplayer modes. Force powers are restricted by your force power bar, which empties with each use but refills over time. Like Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast has RPG elements allowing you to level up force powers, increasing their abilities and duration. The multiplayer mode divides players into light side and dark side in team battles. Each side has access to basic force powers. Powers unique to the light side are mainly focused around protection and healing, while dark side powers are aggressive and offensive based. Unlike Jedi Knight, Kyle does not exclusively select light or dark powers in the story mode, instead receiving a selection of both. All this comes together in a mostly smooth experience. My main critique is that while the lightsaber mechanics are great, you can tell the development team neglected the gunplay, as it feels a bit dated and remained mostly unchanged from Jedi Knight, which was released over a half-decade prior to Jedi Outcast's release. That said, the gun mechanics in Jedi Knight were solid for its time, but first-person shooters had evolved a lot by that point, and Jedi Outcast should have reflected that more in its gun mechanics. Though with awesome lightsaber gameplay, you don't really want, nor do you really need a trusted blaster at your side, kid. So in summation, gameplay gets 3 bits out of 4. If there's one thing LucasArts is good at delivering, it's a solid soundtrack, and you get all the classic John Williams music, plus some original tracks to give the game its own character. And speaking of characters, the voice acting is actually pretty decent. There are a lot of flat deliveries in the line, but honestly I think that's more due to placement by the development team than the voice actors themselves. Jedi Outcast sound gets an above average 3 bits out of 4.
In a clean glass. Of course, sirs.
Jedi Outcast is a good-looking game, but has its flaws. The facial animations are very awkward in some spots. I mean, very awkward. Just look at this. Does that look natural? No, it doesn't. Freaking weird and demonic. Well, besides that, Jedi Outcast delivers the Star Wars universe in a beautiful and immersive experience. While not as detailed as today's Star Wars games, next to Knights of the Old Republic and Battlefront 2, Jedi Outcast was the closest you could get visually to the movies than any other Star Wars game at that time. The level design I feel is fair. The levels are expansive and diverse, with cramped areas and big open areas to fight in. It feels very linear in spots, with not much call for exploring though. Even with this linear setup, the game does a very poor job of telling you where you need to go and what you need to do. There are a lot of areas that will stump you and have you wandering around for a few minutes or hours trying to figure out what the hell do you do here. And I feel that is just poor game development there. They should have put a little bit extra time into maybe, I don't know, having a hint system or or just having some NPC remind you of what you need to do and where you need to go. It just wasn't there in this game. Maybe I'm just an idiot. The story mode is set 8 years after Return of the Jedi and around 2 years after the events of Mysteries of the Sith, the previous title in the series. As stated earlier, you play Kyle Katarn, a former Jedi who has cut off his link to the Force after succumbing to the dark side in the previous game. At the start of the game, Kyle is a mercenary for hire working for the New Republic. Over the course of the game, Kyle is joined by various other characters. 3 of the most prominent are his loyal companion Jan Ors, a fellow mercenary and subsequent love interest, Mr. Charm himself, Lando Calrissian, and Luke Skywalker, Grand Jedi Master and leader of the Jedi Academy. The player also receives help from other Jedi and New Republic soldiers throughout the game, while Mon Mothma, the New Republic's leader, assigns Kyle and Jan missions during the game. Kyle's antagonist is Dasan, a former student of the Jedi Academy. He killed a fellow student before leaving the Order. Other sub-bosses are Tavion, Dasan's apprentice, Galak Fayar, a general in the Imperial Remnant, and Relo Baruch, a crime lord posing as a respectable garbage man. Other enemies include Imperial stormtroopers, numerous space thugs, and soldiers infused with the Force known as Reborn. The game begins with Kyle and Jan investigating a supposedly abandoned Imperial outpost on Kajim. However, when they arrive, they find the base is crawling with Imperial forces. They fight their way through the base, discovering a research center studying crystals that are used to power lightsabers. After discovering the crystals' origins, Kyle and Jan travel to a mining colony taken over by the Imperial Remnant, where people have been enslaved and experimented upon. Katarn sabotages their operations. On his way out, though, Jan is captured by Dasan and Tavion. Kyle tries to rescue her, but is easily defeated by Dasan, who then orders Tavion to kill Jan before they leave the planet. With Jan dead, Kyle then travels to the Valley of the Jedi, which was a very important plot point in Jedi Knight. It's a place with a lot of dead Jedi spirits floating around, and pretty much you can use it to empower yourself with the Force. Kyle uses this to regain his Force powers, and then he makes his way to the Jedi Academy to get his lightsaber. There he learns of Dasan's origins from Luke Skywalker. Luke offers Kyle his lightsaber back, but Luke also warns Kyle about the anger he feels over Jan's death, saying the path he is walking is a dangerous one, but he nevertheless gives Kyle information linking Dasan to Relo Baruch, a Rodian crime lord on Nar Shaddaa. Which, if you think about it, this is strange and very out of character for the Luke Skywalker we've seen on film and read in comic books and all that. It's like he's essentially saying, hey guy who turned to the dark side a few years ago, yeah, I see you, and I see you're being tempted by the dark side again. But you know what? What the hell? Here's your lightsaber back and my blessing, and also telling you where to go find the guy that you want to murder. Because, you know, the player needs to kill things with their saber. Kyle bumps into Lando while chasing down Baruch. Lando informs Kyle that Dasan is part of a huge operation smuggling cortosis, a lightsaber-resistant material, through Cloud City. Because, you know, we need an excuse to go see an iconic location from the films. After escaping Baruch, Kyle and Lando head for Bespin. Kyle has his first encounter with the Reborn here. As discussed earlier, they are Imperial soldiers infused with the Force. Think of them as Dark Acolytes. Not really Sith or Dark Jedi, kind of a little under that. You eventually encounter Tavion in Bespin. Kyle defeats Tavion in battle and then threatens to kill her, but Tavion pleads for her life, telling Kyle that Jan is alive and on board the Doomgiver, which is Dasan's flagship. Jan's fake death was just a ploy to trick Kyle into going to the Valley of the Jedi, so Dasan could follow him there and tap its power. Kyle makes his way to the installation that the Doomgiver is docked. Kyle meets up with Luke here. From Luke, Kyle learns that Dasan found the Valley of the Jedi and used the energy to empower an army of Reborn. After battling several Reborn, they part ways. Kyle confronts more Reborn, including Shadow Troopers. These are Reborn equipped with armor which is both lightsaber resistant and can cloak. They remind me a little bit of the elites from Halo that could cloak themselves. Kyle manages to sneak aboard the Doomgiver, but is separated from Luke in the process. Kyle then sets out to sabotage the ship. He finds Jan in the detention block, but learns that Dasan was not specifically interested in the Valley of the Jedi. Instead, his goal all along was to invade the Jedi Academy on Yavin 4. Kyle destroys the Doomgiver's shield reactor and kills Galak Fayar, who has created a mech-like suit that is lightsaber resistant. This is a boss battle that is a nice throwback to the original Dark Forces final boss battle. I really liked it. It was a nice touch. Now, after escaping the ship's destruction, Kyle and Jan land on Yavin 4. Kyle heads to the Jedi Academy while Jan goes to the hangar to assist the aerial battle. Not before we get an awkward kissing scene that was rife during the 6th generation of gaming. Ugh, what were they thinking? That's not how kissing works. What's wrong with these people? Kyle finds the Academy overrun with remnant forces, but with the help of New Republic troopers, he fights his way into the Academy. There, together with Jedi students, Kyle battles against Reborn warriors and Shadowed troopers. Kyle finally confronts Dasan here. He reveals the Doomgiver's destruction and the defeat of the remnant forces, but Dasan rejects Kyle's offer of surrender and the final battle begins. Of course, after you beat this final boss, it shows Kyle prevailing and killing Dasan, and then reuniting with Luke and Jan. They share a brief exposition about the events of the game and Kyle's future in the Jedi Order. Kyle politely rejects Luke's offer to safeguard his lightsaber, saying he's not ready to forsake the Force again, leaving the door wide open for a sequel. Presentation is probably the weakest link in this game, having decent to bland level design and those awkward-looking, almost demonic facial animations, and a story that is trying to be an epic Star Wars tale, but it falls short. And why it falls short is because mainly the antagonist. Dasan isn't very interesting as a villain. He seems very cunning at first, manipulating Kyle to reveal the Valley of the Jedi, only to use its power to help him attack the Jedi Academy. He comes across petty more than a big bad villain. At the end of it all, I was left mildly disappointed. Luckily, the gameplay was great and compensated a lot for the stale plot. So in summation, Jedi Outcast presentation gets a passing grade of 2 bits out of 4. Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast isn't as good as I remember it being. Once I took off the nostalgia glasses, I kind of finally saw all the flaws that it had. That being said though, I still think it's a solid game, especially when you consider its unparalleled lightsaber battle mechanics. My final verdict for Jedi Outcast is a must-own and play for the casual and hardcore collector of the Xbox, GameCube, and PC. The console versions run a little bit higher than the PC. The Xbox is around $10 online, while the GameCube is around $20. I got the PC version on Steam for around $5. That's it for this review, guys. As always, stay safe. What's that sound? What's that smell? Is that gas? Look, I'm gonna level with you guys. I'm trapped here against my will. I have no idea where I'm at. But if anyone sees this, please alert the authorities. I need your help. Call the fire marshal, the police, or the National Guard. Don't call the president. He's an idiot child. But everyone else, please call them. Shit, what am I gonna do? Maybe he left the door unlocked. It's worth a shot. Shit!
You think it would be that easy? I was just gonna let you walk out on me again? No! No! It's not how it's gonna go down. You're gonna be here for a while. As always, stay safe and play on.
Jesus. I gotta get out of here. If only there was someone here who could help me escape.
Come with me if you want to live.
Oh, thank Dad, the Terminator's here to save me!
Get to the chopper!
Alright, Arnold, but I don't hear a chopper. I mean, we're in a dungeon, there's no sky, so how do I get to the chopper?
Hasta la vista, baby.
No, wait, Terminator, please don't go. Please don't leave me here.
Two-bit.
Wait, no!
Wakey bakey, two-bit! Get up!
You know, you really didn't have to knock me out with that cattle prodder. Man, that gave me some weird dreams.
Really? What kind of dreams?
Why the hell would I tell you?
Come on, two-bit. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere.
Besides, I have my hand on the gas valve.
Okay, alright, I'll tell you. I was dreaming I was in a Terminator movie.
Terminator? I love those movies. Especially Terminator 2. Judgment Day.
Huh, you're right. They were pretty good. Though too bad the games based on the movies weren't as good.
What? No. Have you played Terminator 2 on NES? It's like the best.
Yeah, no, that's like one of the worst games. I remember coming home as a child from the rental store so excited to play Terminator 2 for the NES, only to find out that I had wasted my time and money on that shitty LJN title.
No. You were just a kid back then. You didn't understand LJN's brilliance. It's a game that encompasses beat-em-ups and run-and-gun platforming and shoot-em-ups. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think I own a copy. Wait right here. I'll be back.
I hope you're not thinking what I think you're thinking. Please no, anything but that!
Yeah, here you go.
Whoa! Was that necessary?
You must review this game, or you will be terminated. Get down! Go now, you must go! Hasta la vista, baby.
Terminator 2 Judgment Day for the NES is a side-scrolling platformer, beat-em-up, and shoot-em-up published by LJN and developed by Software Creations. It was released in 1991 to coincide with a theatrical movie release of the same name. This game would later be ported to the Sega Master System and Game Gear. That version was published by Flying Edge. The movie Terminator 2 had a huge marketing blitz. There are a ton of iterations of this game, whether it be on the arcade or the 16-bit systems SNES and Genesis. It's a lot to look at, and that's why we are solely focusing on the NES version of T2 Judgment Day. Now that we got these lack of tidbits out of the way, let's terminate this review. Now I know LJN's reputation for making shoddy control mechanics, but T2's controls are actually very responsive and fluid. It's their application that's done poorly. Most levels have you exploring a fixed area and give you an objective either by defeating an X amount of enemies or collecting an X amount of items. You have the ability to jump and platform and punch enemies, and later you get a weapon to use, but with a catch. Following the movie's story, the game will punish you if you kill enemies. You must incapacitate them by shooting them in the knees. This brings a big challenge in later levels when you're timed and have to rush through. Going back to the beat-em-up side of the game, it's pure button mashing, and even the weakest enemies take forever to kill. Your thumb will be exhausted by the end of these portions of the game. Speaking of health and being tough to kill, you're rather easy to kill, and it takes little to no time at all to bring your health down. This is very unfair given that the weakest enemy takes forever to kill, but it takes them almost no time at all to destroy you. I mean, you're the freaking Terminator! It should be the opposite until you meet up with a T-1000. Who is the toughest character in the game? He will hound you throughout the game and even respawns after you defeat him. So until you reach the end of the game, it's best to avoid him so you can conserve ammo. Speaking of that final fight with the T-1000, it has a nice tie-in to the movie, as the only way to defeat the T-1000 is to push him into the molten steel. The second level differs greatly from the rest of the game. This is where I died a lot in the game, as there's a lot going on. You have to avoid obstacles, you have to shoot the big rig to keep it at bay, and then you have to shoot the gates open. I would also say in retrospective, probably this level was the most fun I had in the game. At the same time, also the most frustrated I was in the game. There is little to no platforming in the majority of the game. It feels more like a beat 'em up or run and gun until you get to the final level, which is nothing but platforming, except for the T-1000. He is the only enemy in the final level, and the rest of it's just platforming and avoiding hazards. It really feels either rushed and incomplete, or just slapped together without a care. While the controls are responsive and work fairly well, the rest of the gameplay is messy and poorly executed. The game can't make up its mind on what it wants to be. The first level is like a beat 'em up, the second a shoot 'em up, the third and fourth a run and gun, and the final level is a platformer. Had all these been executed well, I may have been able to look past this game's schizophrenia on gameplay, but this game executes all these play types either in a mediocre fashion or very poorly. So in summation, Terminator 2's gameplay gets 1 bit
Hasta la vista, baby.
out of 4. Terminator 2's soundtrack is rather bland. I like Stage 2's theme, but for the most part, the songs aren't terrible, but they are rather bland and really just background noise. The sound effects now, they sound like a wet fart in church. The ones that do work sound like reused assets from previous LJN titles, like the melted steel from the final level sounds suspiciously like the waves from TNC Surf. My final score for Terminator 2 sound is a failing grade of 1-bit
Hasta la vista, baby.
out of 4. Presentation is another mixed bag for this title. The game mostly has either a black or gray background. There isn't a whole lot of color here to help the sprites and the environment pop out at you. Now, level design is not terrible, but also not very exciting. The plot is where this game shines, as it follows the movie's story rather well, touching on all the important plot points of the film. You play, of course, the one celebrity I've referenced the most here on the 2-Bit Review, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is the Terminator sent back in time to protect John Connor, a bratty kid who will one day become the savior of the world from the machines that rose up in rebellion to man. In the game, you protect John Connor and his mom from the T-1000, a superior Terminator, while also helping the Connors destroy Cyberdyne, the company responsible for creating Skynet, the original machine that eventually rebels against humanity. The game's ending actually matches up quite well with the iconic ending scene from the movie. Terminator 2's presentation may be the high point of this review, but it still has a low grade with dull colors and graphics. Its one high point is its sticking faithfully to the events of the movie, but that's not enough to push it beyond the other troubles this game is suffering. I give Terminator 2's presentation 1 bit.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Out of 4. Terminator 2 Judgment Day for the NES is a mediocre game, and I would say it's not good, or it's not so bad that it's good. It's just go away, and what I mean by that is I don't ever care to play this game again. I remember renting this game as a kid and enjoying it because I love the Terminator, but once I picked it up again without the nostalgia glasses on, I see a game that is trying to be many things, but at the same time not putting any effort in the execution of what it's trying to accomplish. My final verdict for Terminator 2 Judgment Day on the NES is a recommended ignore and run away for the casual and hardcore collector of the NES. It's really not worth your time unless you just like playing really bad games, or you're looking to fill that empty spot on your shelf and game catalog. And for you guys, you can find it online for around $2 to $6 depending on where you look. That's it for this review, guys. As always, let the authorities know I'm being held against my will!
2-Bit, I'm very disappointed in you, 2-Bit. That review was not very pleasing.
I'm not gonna lie just to stroke your overinflated ego. I may have to review what you tell me to, but a review is sacred and must be honest no matter what.
Well, I'm glad to see you still have your integrity, but don't worry. That's not gonna last much longer. Now why don't you go ahead and do the outro?
No, let me out of here right now! I did the damn review, I did the last one, let me go see my family!
You still haven't learned, have you, 2-Bit? I'm your family now. Stay safe and play on.
So... do you have a name?
2-Bit, you know I can't give you my real name. But I don't know, what do I sound like to you? Maybe a Charles or a George. What do you think?
I don't know, man. Although you are in charge, Charles really doesn't fit, and George reminds me of George Lucas, and too many bad memories there.
You just kind of feel like a Mr. X to me.
Mr. X? Yeah, I kind of like that. Mr. X. Look, 2-Bit, I don't want us to be enemies. I think this whole thing is gonna work a hell of a lot better if we just work together.
Kinda hard to get on board after, kidnapped me. You had a shock bracelet on me. You make me shit in a bucket and then eat out of it. And then let's not mention the fact that you gas me daily. I mean, no telling what that's doing to my health.
I get that. I do, but you don't understand. I have good reasons for doing what I do. And I only knock you out so that I can come in there and take care of you. I feed you, I empty your bucket, I clean you.
You clean me? Guess that explains the new clothes. Just forget about that. Why are we doing this? I just want to know. Why the reviews? Please tell me.
Okay. Look, I wasn't a popular child. And my parents, they didn't really raise me in what could be considered a normal household. The only thing I had was games. Games were my friends. Games were my parents. And I need to remember those times. Before the social workers. Before the foster homes. Before the fire. Look, I'm taking good care of you, and I haven't touched your family. And I won't, as long as you cooperate with me. What do you say?
Oh my god, I'm sorry, Mr. X. Man, I get it. My childhood wasn't great either. I remember one time my NES was stolen.
Oh my god, that's terrible, 2-Bit. I'm so sorry for you.
It's okay. My cousin let me borrow his NES, and I got to play this awesome game called Cabal. It just goes to show you that while bad things may happen, people ultimately are good.
Okay, 2-Bit. I think I know what we can do. Cabal is a third-person shooter released in 1988. The arcade version was published by Taito Fabtech and developed by Tadcorp. It was released for various home computers of the day like the Commodore 64 and Amiga. The NES got a port as well, and it was published by Milton Bradley and developed by Rare. Cabal holds a special place in gaming history as it was a pioneer and set standards for the third-person shooter genre of games, and it made this game stand out back in the 80s, as there were not many games like it in that era. With these tidbits out of the way, let's shoot to the review.
The controls are very simple. You move your character and crosshair with the D-pad. Pressing down will make your character kneel. You hold A to shoot your rifle, A plus up to throw grenades, holding B will make you run, and a cool trick to avoid getting hit by enemy fire is to hit down plus left or right while running. Your character will do a somersault. This trick can save your butt in some tricky situations. There are 5 levels in Cabal. Each level has 4 stages. The objective in each stage is to cause mass destruction on the environment and destroy all enemy combatants. That's right, we don't negotiate with terrorists, or the civilian populations that stand between us and them. You have your basic enemy soldiers running across the screen, taking pot shots at you, or throwing a grenade. Their challenge is in numbers. Don't let too many of them fill the screen, or you will be overrun. Thankfully, each stage gives you cover, but be warned, just as you can obliterate the enemy's buildings and cover, they can do the same to yours. There are trucks in Cabal that I actually don't know what their function is. I never saw them attack me or drop off soldiers. They're just there to shoot at, I guess. Other vehicular enemies are tanks, bombers, and helicopters. These enemies take their time to attack, so take them out before they go on the attack, or just stay clear of their attack path. One enemy soldier I forgot to mention is this gray soldier. He has the same attacks as the basic green soldier, except he will use what appears to be years of dance and ballet lessons to dodge your attacks, making it very difficult to take him out.
I hate this guy. Why won't he just die?
So you think the guy's a jackass for wanting to live?
As a matter of fact, I do. We would have had this level beaten already if it wasn't for Sir Prancelot.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Sir Prancelot's insatiable lust for life, you wouldn't be so inconvenienced.
Exactly. Speaking of prancing, when When you complete a stage, you're treated to a very celebratory and cheerful song with your soldiers dancing toward the horizon after their session of death and total destruction in the stage.
Okay? Alright. Well, Mr. X, let's just get back to this review. The difficulty in each stage is very inconsistent. One stage will have you swamped with enemies, while the next stage will be a light pacing of enemies. The same could be said of the bosses. Level 1 has you face a bomber helicopter with a basic and easily avoidable attack. Naturally, Level 2's boss is much harder with the submarine, which is much faster, stronger, and submerges underwater to avoid your attacks. Then Level 3's boss is a truck that drops cannons off to attack you. All you have to do is take these cannons out. The truck has no attacks besides dropping off cannons. There is no challenge here. It almost seems like the development team was like, boy, Level 2 sure was a challenge, let's give them a freebie in Level 3. They at least could have had a guy shooting at you from the truck to give you a tough time as you try taking out the cannons. Level 4 has a slightly more challenging boss in the form of 3 huge turrets, but a spamming grenade attack takes care of them fairly easily. Level's 5 boss is definitely the toughest, as it's a giant turret with 5 smaller regenerating turrets. Just keep knocking out the smaller turrets and victory is yours. All in all, everything comes together giving a solid experience, minus the inconsistent difficulty. Gameplay gets 2 bits.
Get to the chopper!
Out of 4. Cabal doesn't have too much to it as far as sound is concerned. Your gun sounds honestly like a muffled typewriter. Thankfully, the rest of the sounds deliver a bit more, like when you pick up the power-up for your gun, it has a very empowering sound to it. The grenades and bombs in the game have that classic explosion sound that I've always loved on the NES. You get the same exact song in all 5 levels. You only get a break from it at the completion of a level or a boss fight. Now, the boss fight songs fit very well with the action, and overall, I believe they're very well done. Cabal's sound and music are on par, but nothing really special or stupendous. I give Cabal's sound 1 bit.
Get to the chopper!
Out of 4. Let's get right to it. Does Cabal on the NES look as good as the arcade original? No, but it looks pretty darn close enough for an 8-bit version. All the sprites look good and are well proportioned to the stages, which was a problem with some arcade ports in this era, where you would get a game with much smaller characters compared to the environment, or vice versa. For an example, check out my excellent Smash TV review. Well, finish watching this review first, then go check that one out. All 5 levels look very diverse, and I never felt besides the enemies that I was seeing the same level over and over again. One drawback is when there are a lot of sprites on the screen, the enemies will start having graphical glitches, some even disappearing completely. But this only lasts for a second or 2 and doesn't affect the overall experience, minus an uncommon cheap death from one of these disappearing enemies. Cabal takes place in a Vietnam-esque setting. The story, according to the manual, is that DRAT, which stands for Dreaded Republic of Allied Terrorists, hey wait, DRAT, I hate those guys!
Come on, 2-Bit, they can't be that bad. I mean, they are an allied republic, so at least they give all of their members equal representation on who they should terrorize.
DRAT is planning a worldwide assault, so the World Affairs Council has sent you, the Blue Commando, and Red Commando, if you're player 2, to their training camp on a secluded island.
Dreaded Republican Allied Terrorists? A World Affairs Council? This is turning into the bad first draft of a Schwarzenegger movie.
Fuck you.
Once you reach the end of level 5, you finally achieve complete victory over the dratted Drats.
You seriously went there?
Yes, I did. You get a static end scene where your commander congratulates you on defeating the terrorists and tells you to return to HQ for your next mission. I smell a sequel!
Wait, where am I?
Probably flying the helicopter.
This is bullcrap! I fought through all 5 levels alongside you! I deserve some credit too. Was it that hard to put a red commando across from the blue one in the static screen, Taito? Unbelievable!
Hey, we gotta put our initials in for our scores, so you're gonna get some credit.
Oh, I got an initial for him.
Oh, hey, how rude! So in summation, with a faithful port of the arcade's aesthetic and overall graphics, with the Schwarzenegger-esque plot minus the graphical glitches from the console slowdown, presentation gets 2 bits.
Get to the chopper!
Out of 4. Cabal is a solid NES title, definitely worth a play. That said, it does have some issues, like the instances where there are too many enemies on the screen and some go invisible but are still there and can cause a cheap death from the game. Or the fact that the difficulty is very inconsistent in the stages. It just feels strange as the basic game design in the third generation of games was usually the difficulty gets harder as you progress, not that it goes up and down throughout the game. But I feel this doesn't take away from the overall experience. So my final verdict for Cabal on the NES is a must-play and buy for the casual and hardcore collector of the NES. You can find it online for about $8 or less. Well guys, thanks for watching, and that was the review.
So 2-Bit, did that review help? Did it make you feel any better?
Yeah, I guess. Thanks. You know, you're not such a bad guy after all. How about you tell me about what happened in that fire?
I remember the flames. They burned so hot that they dried the tears even as they fell from my eyes. I screamed for help. They were trapped inside and I screamed for someone to help. But by the time the flames were put out by the firefighters, it was too late. I couldn't save them.
Wow, that's terrible. I'm so sorry you had to go through that, but it wasn't your fault.
It is my fault. I should have saved them. But I forgot to grab the box before I set the fire.
The box? What about your family, your parents?
You see, I put all my games into a box and set it by the front door. But the gas burned so quickly I didn't have time. I forgot to get the box. In my rush to escape, I forgot to grab it. And they all died. Every game I had, everyone I loved died in that fire. The only good thing about that day was hearing the screams coming from the upstairs bedroom. Over the years, as I slowly rebuilt my collection, it was only the memory of those screams that made me smile.
Holy cannoli, you're a goddamn monster! And to think I thought there might be some good in you! I'm never gonna do another 2-player review with you again! You're gonna have to kill me first, you fucking insane prick!
2-Bit, I'm hurt. Really, here I was thinking that we were starting to connect, that you had started to understand why I have to keep you here. Oh well. I guess I'll just have to do what must be done. Just like I always do.
Not again!
Stay safe and play on. 2-Bit. 2-Bit, are you awake?
What do you want?
I know you're still mad at me, but I have something to cheer you up. It's a Star Wars game. In fact, it's a Star Wars game based on the best Star Wars movie.
Ugh, whatever, man. There's nothing you can say to bait me into going along with your sick game.
Don't you even care to know what the game is? 2-Bit. I thought you might feel this way, so I called up a very good friend of mine, and he wants to talk to you.
Holy moly, it's the real George Lucas, but wait. Why are you here?
I came to help my friend convince you to play a very special game. A game based on the best Star Wars movie ever made.
Empire?
Not quite, my friend. Empire was great, but it really didn't have very much about trade policy.
Oh god, no.
My favorite child in the glorious game that it birthed onto the PlayStation and PC. That is how I met your landlord, after all. He is the president of the Phantom Menace Appreciation Club, and I'm here on official capacity to spread the good word about Episode 1.
Landlord? Is that what he told you? Well, let me tell you...
Silence!
Oh god, you really do that. I knew it!
Georgie, baby. This guy hasn't paid me rent in like 7 months. Can you just ask him nicely to do a review?
He doesn't have to say anything. I'll do this review. But I want to let Georgie here in on a few things. Regardless of the popular opinion, I actually didn't think Phantom Menace was that bad.
Not that bad. It was a masterpiece. A delicately intertwined love story about politics, bureaucracy, trade policy, and slapstick comedy. And if you think I came all the way down here just to listen to you bash it...
Silence! I can't forgive you for what you did to poor Indy, or the fact that you sold Star Wars to slavers. So I'm gonna Crystal Skull fuck this review while he watches. Star Wars The Phantom Menace is a third-person action-adventure game published by LucasArts and developed by Big Ape Productions. It was released for the PC on April 30th, 1999, and later ported to the PlayStation on August 31st, 1999. It is a tie-in to the first film in the Star Wars prequel trilogy of the same name. Now, regrettably, I was not able to find too much on this game's development. One thing I was able to dig up, though, is an interesting story involving UK's official PlayStation magazine. The magazine's issue number 46 was a celebration of Star Wars, with 4 different collectible covers, a 6-page look at the upcoming movie, and an exclusive 5-page review of the film tie-in game. Some quotes from this review read as follows, and hold on to your butts, folks. Ultimately, Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace is a triumph! It is the most thorough, most accurate version of a film game ever conceived! With both movie and game in tandem, Episode 1's force will be with you always. They ended up giving the game a 9 out of 10. A fucking 9 out of 10! It was later revealed that the staff members of UK OPM were flown off to Skywalker Ranch on an all-expenses-paid trip. This took place prior to the Star Wars issue hitting newsstands, but after the game's release, and after other reviewers got their hands on the game, it became apparent that UK OPM had stretched the truth just a little bit on their review. This hurt their credibility quite a bit, and during this time UK OPM was already on their last leg, with the PlayStation heading into the sunset, and the PlayStation 2, an official PlayStation 2 magazine, just around the corner. So, was UK OPM's contemporaries wrong? Is The Phantom Menace on PlayStation truly a 9 out of 10 game? Well, we're about to find out as we at last review this game. The controls handle slightly more fluid than tank controls, which were prevalent in the PlayStation era. And when I say slightly, I mean barely, as your character still moves very stiff when running, jumping, or attacking. But just like many games from that era, after playing for a while, you will grow accustomed to this setup. The game places you in a top-down third-person view, which is bad for an action-styled game as you can't see too far ahead of yourself. This means you will constantly be surprised by groups of enemy. The platforming is made difficult because of the top-down view. It makes it hard to judge certain jumps, especially the leaps of faith, so get ready for a lot of death drops. The game lets you play 4 characters depending on what level you are on. You can play Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn, Jedi Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi, Queen Amidala, also known as Padme, and Captain Panaka. There's not much difference between them except for the Jedi, as they have lightsabers, the ability to double jump, and force push. The non-Jedi relies solely on blasters, rockets, thermodetonators. Panaka has an exclusive weapon, a heavy blaster, the strongest blaster I would say that's in the game. Padme has one as well, the Hydro Spanner. It shocks droids until they blow up. And honestly, it sucks. When you play her, as soon as you get the chance, find a blaster. Interestingly, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon can pick up and use blasters and the other obtainable weapons in-game.
So uncivilized.
The attacks with these weapons are pretty straightforward. Just press the action button on your controller. If you are shooting at the general direction of an enemy, the blasters will auto-aim on them for the most part. Lightsabers can slash through just about any enemy and deflect blaster shots. You have the standard health bar that can be refilled with back-to-tanks and health kits. The Jedi have a force meter that recharges after a period of time. Your enemies are battle droids, destroyer droids, disgruntled guards, Jawas, Tusken Raiders, random mercenaries, droid tanks, and of course Darth Maul. The enemy AI is pretty stupid. Their danger lies in their numbers and the top-down view, hindering you from seeing them. Darth Maul will spam attacks over and over again, so it's best just to get in a few pot shots on him and then immediately back away. Destroyer droids have a shield on top of their high health, so it's best just to avoid them when you can. Droid tanks are, from what I can tell, invincible. The best strategy I used here is to duck and cover and then maneuver around them. The game has side quests available throughout the levels. They are a nice little addition and expand the gameplay. Everything comes together in a mediocre to poor package. The controls are very stiff, the overhead view puts you at a disadvantage, and honestly, the action boils down to button mashing during the lightsaber battles. I won't say the controls are broken, they do work, it's just their application is poor on the PS1 version. Gameplay gets 1 bit out of 4.
Hey, 1-bit? That's out of line.
You're at my house now, Georgie, so sit down and shut the hell up. I feel like a broken record, but LucasArts never seems to slack when it comes to the sound and music of games. All the music from the movie is present in clear and crisp form, the sound effects are great too, lightsabers, blasters, and explosions all have weight to them, and the voice acting, honestly, is so-so. I do like that some of the actors camped it up, but some others sound rather flat. Cool little factoid, some LucasArts alumni actors have cameos in this game, like Heidi Shannon, who voiced Mara Jade in Mysteries of the Sith, and Doug Lee, who voiced Indiana Jones in both The Infernal Machine and The Search for Atlantis.
This is Mara. I finished my patrol, nothing to report. As usual. Back away slowly and carefully and keep your hands where I can see them.
Listen, Gennady, you don't happen to have any socialist vodka on hand? I'm thirsty. Thank you for rescuing me. They were taking me to be interrogated.
With all that said, my final tally for Phantom Menace's sound is 3 bits out of 4.
Most of the colored passkeys. You'll need to find...
What do you think about that, George, huh? How do you feel about the sound in this game?
Well, I
said shut up!
Well, I never.
Oh boy, where to start? Well, first, the game, it looks bad. And it's not just because it's an old game. Look at this comparison between the PC version and the PlayStation. The graphics are downgraded and there's quite a bit of screen tear throughout the game. Besides those glaring issues, the game in its entirety has been ported over from the PC, and it's impressive that the PlayStation development team did not compromise on that. Most PC to console ports of this era would have whole levels or features cut out. This game delivers diverse levels based on locations from the movie, especially Mos Espa and the Pod Racing Stadium. These two in particular deliver what I feel is a very immersive experience and really made Mos Espa feel like a living, breathing city. The level design is somewhat linear and does a decent job of keeping you on track while allowing you a little bit of space to explore side areas and missions. One flaw in the level design is certain corners of a level will allow you to slip out of it, and you'll fall to your death. This is a glaring glitch in the game that was also present in the PC port. The story follows the movie to a T, touching on all the main plot points and expanding on the areas the movie didn't explore. This is mainly, I think, due to the development team wanting to add more playtime to the game. Some non-movie levels involve Obi-Wan rescuing Jar Jar, then later escorting Queen Amidala to her ship, or Qui-Gon having to search and trade parts for Anakin's pod racer, then getting pushed into a lethal deal with Jabba the Hutt. And finally, there's Captain Panaka exploring the underworld of Coruscant looking for a kidnapped Queen Amidala. These are all nicely placed additions that run parallel to the film's plot. UK official PlayStation Magazine, I believe, was correct in stating The Phantom Menace is one of the best film-to-game conversions. It strictly adheres to the movie's plot, well, minus the space politics. Presentation delivers for this game, but some flawed level design and choppy graphics hold it back from being a complete package. Phantom Menace presentation gets 2 bits out of 4.
Yes, my Padawan. The Sith has struck a mortal blow.
Hey, Phantom Menace for the PS1 is one of the most beautiful games ever created.
Yeah, if you plug your nose and you squint your eyes hard enough, even Bantha Poodoo could look like fine art. Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace is surprisingly a film-based game that's true to its source material. Other aspects, mainly the gameplay, hold it back quite a bit. But there are some high points to the game, like the interesting side missions, or the fully explorable Mos Espa, and then finally, my personal favorite, the final fight with Darth Maul, which was a lot of fun for me. My final verdict for Star Wars Episode 1 on the PlayStation is a recommended look for the casual and a suggested buy for the hardcore collector of the PS1. You can find it online for around $5 to $6. However, I do suggest taking a look at the PC port as, in my opinion, it's the definitive version of the game with superior graphics and gameplay. It can be found online as well for around the same price as the PS1 version. Well guys, that's it for this review. May the 4th be with you, and as always, stay safe and play on.
See what I mean, George? This guy is a terrible person.
I'm terrible? You forced me into captivity! You know, the fact that you love Phantom Menace so much is not that surprising, considering you're a deranged psychopath. Now, George, we need to discuss Jar Jar.
Sorry, there's no time. I gotta go.
And as always, stay safe.
And play all of my wonderful Star Wars games, especially The Phantom Menace.
How was your night?
Oh, it was fine. How was yours?
Good, good. I was hoping you'd be in a good mood today, because I rented a movie. I was thinking after you ate breakfast, we could watch it.
Oh, joy! But, I hope it isn't scary. You know how I scare easily.
Oh, I know. That's why I rented Shrek.
Alright, Shrek, again. That movie never gets old. But hey, Mr. X, you think that maybe we could have some popcorn?
No! I said no more popcorn after what happened last time, remember?
Ah, popcorn! My favorite! Ah, my face!
Yes, of course, you're right. Always looking out for the best interest of the audience. You know, I think my daughters used to love popcorn.
Now what did we talk about?
That my family doesn't care about me, and if they did, I wouldn't be here. I think that you bringing me here is possibly the best thing that's ever happened to me. And to think that I was going to stop reviewing games and do something useless like raise my family or try to further my education. Thank you, Mr. X. Thank you.
And you are very welcome. And just remember,
we are the only family we need.
Hey, Two-Bit, it looks like we got a request from a viewer. Someone named Spooky Dave says here he wants you to review Fantasy Zone for the Sega Master System.
That's great! Thank you so much for taking care of the channel so that I can focus on reviewing games.
Well, if you really want to thank me, just give this review your best shot.
Fantasy Zone was originally an arcade game developed and published by Sega. It was released in 1986 and later ported to the Sega Master System. The game eventually saw ports in other consoles and home computers, like the Nintendo Entertainment System and the PC Engine, or as we know it here in North America, the TurboGrafx 16. While all the ports are similar to the original version, the Master System version is missing some aspects of the original arcade, like the radar that shows the location of the bases, or the base's energy bar. 2 of the bosses have been replaced by original ones for the Master System. Other ports have several changes as well, but today we are reviewing the Master System version. Fantasy Zone is heavily inspired by Eugene Jarvis's Defender. It has a unique Japanese take on the formula, however, with smoother controls and game mechanics, and a very bright, colorful aesthetic. Fantasy Zone was popular in Japan, though never quite reached the same amount of attention here in North America. Opa Opa, Fantasy Zone's protagonist, was for a while an official mascot for Sega. This of course was the pre-Sonic era for Sega, and they were desperately trying to find a mascot to rival Nintendo's Mario. Opa Opa showed up in the anime Zillion. He also made an appearance in several Sega games like Alex Kidd. Now with these tidbits done, let's scroll left and right and shoot right into the review. The controls are smooth and very responsive. I felt like I was in complete control of Opa Opa. In the game, your ship is placed in levels with bases that must be destroyed. When all the bases are gone, the stage boss appears. Once the boss is defeated, you move on to the next stage. This pattern repeats itself until the final stage. The boss fights can be a little cheap. For example, stage 3 boss will charge you kamikaze style once it's down to about 2 or 3 weapons. It does this without giving you enough time to finish it off, thus leading to what I feel are some unfair deaths. I eventually was able to overcome this, but I think that was more due to luck than skill. There are 8 stages, and in all of them except for the final one, the scrolling is not fixed, giving you free roam across the board, although the stage does loop. The final level consists of a boss gauntlet of the previously defeated bosses before facing the final boss. Opa Opa, the ship you play, uses 2 different attacks, the standard weapon, which are bullets, and bombs. Opa Opa can also land on the ground by sprouting feet and walking around. You can upgrade Opa Opa's weapons, bombs, and engine to increase speed as well as get extra lives. But to get these upgrades, you must get money by defeating enemies, bases, and bosses. And usually the bosses will yield you the most coin, so you really make a lot of your money off of the boss battles. Every stage will give you access to a shop to spend your hard-earned coin on upgrades. Opa Opa can only use 1 engine, weapon, and bomb at a time, so choose the right equipment that suits your playstyle and the level you're on. Some of the new weapons have a time limit that starts as soon as you leave the shop. Some of the bombs can be used at any moment but are limited to quantity. Engine upgrades are permanent. The power-ups can also be reassigned by re-entering the shop or touch a balloon with the word select written on it. The one critique I have about this little section is I felt that the shop and the select area could have been easier accessed. I believe they only appear like once in a level, but if you die and replay the level, they'll pop up again. The development team, I feel, could have made them pop up a little bit more frequently. It felt random when they would pop up. So, with smooth controls, fun levels with challenging enemies, tons of different upgrades and weapons giving you new strategies to beat levels, combined with the sometimes cheap AI and the randomness of the shop and select area, Fantasy Zone's gameplay gets 3 bits out of 4. The music is done well. I'm impressed with the Master System's sound capability. The music and sound effects are clear and crisp. Speaking of the music, I was not expecting to like it given the cute and colorful theme of the game, but the infectiously upbeat music got to me, and I got into the game and the music lifted my spirits. So all that said, Fantasy Zone sound gets 3 bits out of 4. This game is bright and colorful, and really earns the name Cute 'em Up. It shows off the Master System's unique color palette, but some spots and levels look ugly due to overuse of one color or another, but this doesn't happen in the majority of the levels. The plot of Fantasy Zone is as follows. In the space year 6216, the Fantasy Zone was cast in panic at the collapse of the interplanetary monetary system. The Space Guild brings to light the plans of the planet Menace, whose forces are stealing other planets' currencies to fund huge fortresses in the Fantasy Zone. Opa Opa is sent to stop the invading army and discover who is behind it. Now let me stop here for a second. After reading through this plot synopsis, this is starting to sound a lot like Episode 1's plot. I'm starting to think that George Lucas was playing Fantasy Zone on the Sega Master System when he was writing the Phantom Menace's plot. So at the end, the final boss and the person behind all of this is revealed to be Opa Opa's father, a tragic twist in the otherwise sanguine game world. So in summation, colorful worlds, a decent plot combined with other not so colorful worlds, presentation gets 2 bits. Out of 4.
Fantasy Zone for the Sega Master System is a joy to play. I took a look at the NES port for comparison, and it looks a lot different than the Master System and original arcade version. It also plays a lot worse. So if you're looking for the definitive 8-bit version of Fantasy Zone, the Master System version is the one to look at. My final verdict for Fantasy Zone on the Sega Master System is a must-play and own for the casual and hardcore collector alike. It's a fun, upbeat game that's also very welcoming to people like me who aren't really used to playing shooters. You can find it online for around $16. Well, that's it for this review, guys. Remember to stay safe and play on.
That was great, 2-Bit. I'm so glad you finally realized that I'm your best hope of making sense of this crazy world. Hold on. What? Oh, wait. Hold on, 2-Bit. I'll be right back. And you know what? Since you did such a good job, if you're really quiet, when I get back, I'll give you some popcorn. If you let me blow on it first.
Alright!
Hello?
Hey, sir. How you doing? My name's Donovan. I'm out here passing out these flyers. It's about a missing person, Sean. You might know him off of YouTube.
What's this?
Jesus on
No. I don't have internet connection. YouTube, this guy? Well, I've never seen this ugly guy around here before.
I got you. Well, anyway, if you see anybody that looks like him or anything like that, can you contact that number on there?
Sorry, I can't help
We're trying to locate him. He's been missing for a few days now.
All right then. Goodbye.
Anyway, I'm sorry to bother you, sir. Have a good day.
You be safe and play on.
What did you say? You son of a bitch, you know where he's at! You son of a bitch, where is he? You know something!
Little shots for you, Scarecrow! It's about time you showed up.
Where am I? What the fuck's going on here?
Good to see you too. First answer, I have no idea. Second answer, something bigger than the both of us.
It's you. What the fuck's going on here?
Well. Glad to see you're finally awake. I want to play a game with you. So when I say,
fuck you, you sick fuck.
As I was saying, play Satan, I want to play a game with you. You and 2-Bit Jesus here are going to review Fighting Force for the PS1.
2-Bit? Play Satan? Those are characters, what the fuck?
Mr. X is very strict about names. It's very important to the audience that we stay in character. He only speaks to me on the speaker, and he only calls me 2-Bit. He forces me to play shitty games. He makes me poop in a bucket. And he told me that if we tried to escape, he would kill both our families. At first, I thought that he was insane. But then he made me realize the rest of the world is insane!
Fuck that. Are you crazy? We don't know his intentions. What if he's trying to kill us? Or worse, rape our bumholes?
I don't think he wants that. He's been taking care of me the past few months. He feeds me, he clothes me, he cleans out my bucket. He cleans me.
It
kind of sounds like those are his intentions. He cleans you?
Don't worry, he knocks you out with gas first before he comes into the room.
Oh my god, what the fuck is wrong with you? Your family's been worried about you.
My family? They don't care about me. They tried to get me to quit reviewing games. They didn't realize the importance of my work. But Mr. X, he saw that I needed guidance and he brought me to where I belong.
You belong at home with your kids. Do you remember them? Their smiles, the way you guys ate popcorn together, how they prodded you in the butt with sticks, how they ran naked in your neighbor's lawn as he looked longingly at them, the way that you would sleep and they'd burn your face. Dude, you need to snap out of it.
Enough! Now it's time to review one of Core's greatest gaming franchises, Fighting Force. Get to work.
Fighting Force is a 3D beat-em-up with lots of boobies.
Yes, of course. Fighting Force is a 3D beat-em-up published by Eidos and developed by Core. It was released in 1997 for the PlayStation and later ported to the Nintendo 64 and PC. Fighting Force is the spiritual successor to the Streets of Rage franchise. See, back in the mid to late 90s, Sega was in decline from its glory years in the 16-bit era. This is more evident in Fighting Force's development, as it was meant to be Streets of Rage 4, with Core Design developing and Sega publishing. But there was a disagreement between Core and Sega over porting the game to rival formats, forcing Sega to pull the Streets of Rage name off the project. I think Sega did the right thing in this situation. For example, it would be like Rare telling Nintendo they wanted to port DK64 to the PlayStation. Streets of Rage was a Sega property and they didn't want their games being played on rival hardware. Even with this fallout between the two, a Sega Saturn version was still developed, but it was never released due to publishing issues with Eidos. And later another publishing issue with Sega of Europe, who eventually obtained the rights to release it in Europe. A release that actually never happened. I have read that there's an early prototype of the Sega Saturn port floating somewhere around the internet. Well guys, that's it for these tidbits. Let's fight and force our way through this review.
I know I sound like a broken record on PlayStation and N64 era games, but the controls are really stiff. It's hard to move around the environment with precision and fluidity. There is also a slight delay between you pressing a button and your character executing said button commands.
Well, aside from those flaws, it takes a lot of cues from the Streets of Rage franchise, as you can punch, kick, throw, jump, attack, use special attacks and knock out enemies, but takes away a little bit of health and use environmental weapons like knives, pipes, car engines, rockets, and guns. And once your firearms run out of ammo, you can just throw them at the bad guy.
Speaking of bad guys, they are dumb as shit. But their challenge lays in their attack being more powerful than yours, and the game giving you little to no health or extra lives throughout the game. It's not atrocious, but it is enough of an undue burden to the player. It creates an unfair edge in the game's favor versus the player. The hit detection is way off. There were several instances where 2-Bit came to help me by hitting and attacking the enemy. And on screen, his character clearly connected the hit to the enemy, but the game registered it as a hit from my character.
Aside from those basic gameplay aspects, it seems Core's approach to the beat-em-up was to emulate 3D fighters of the day, as the stiffness of the characters reflects those types of games and the level design takes the same direction. It's very boring. The first few levels are exciting and have a natural progression to them. You start out on the street and fight your way to a building, and then eventually to an elevator and to the top of the floor where you face the game's villain. After that, it's a lot of disjointed stages that feel like they have nothing to do with each other, save for one thing that all the levels have in common. They take place in a squared area where you must defeat waves of enemy, around 3 or 4 of them at a time, and they are the same enemies over and over again. It's downright tedious and sucks all the fun out of this game. I would have gladly taken a shorter game with less levels if it meant I got a longer level that had a good progression in the environment and enemies to battle. A great aspect that Core implemented is giving multiple routes to progress through the game. A few boss fight levels give you a choice of where to go. Unfortunately, you'll be going to levels that, while thematically different, are designed the same as the level you just left. One thing we have not touched on is the playable characters, a staple of any great beat-em-up. You can choose from Hawk Mason, our Axel of this game. He's an all-around type character that leans on strength over agility.
Then there's Ben Smasher Jackson, our Max of the group. He is a tank and honestly should be the go-to character. I thought like Max they would have toned down his speed, but Max honestly feels just as fast as Hawk. With movement and speed, he will destroy anything in his path. And moving on to our SCADA fighting force, Alana McKendricks, who is fast but has weak attacks. Mace Daniels is our Blaze, who is also an all-around type character who leans on agility over strength.
Look, Mace may play like Blaze, she may look like Blaze, but she's not my fucking Blaze.
Are you okay?
I was gonna marry her.
With how these characters behave and look, you can definitely tell they were making a Streets of Rage game before they had to quickly change everything after the IP was pulled from the project. One last aspect of Fighting Force that is flawed is the difficulty. Like Streets of Rage 3, normal feels like hard mode, and easy felt more like normal mode, as it at least gives you some continues and a chance, where normal mode affords you none of this. Granted, the game does utilize a save system which is kind of useless given the arcade beat-em-up style they were going for. Not to mention they didn't put it on the main menu screen, they have it hidden in the options section. Fighting Force's gameplay offers a lot of fun in the first 3 to 4 stages,
but after that it enters a death spiral that it never bounces back from, given its unfair difficulty, repetitive enemies, stages, and finally the god-awful hit detection and sloppy controls.
I would give Fighting Force's gameplay a half-bit out of 4.
With the way the levels were designed, this really would have worked better as a Killjoy or Wu-Tang Clan style fighting game instead of a beat-em-up. But this brought nothing new to the table with its repetitive gameplay. I give this game a half-a-warm beer out of 4.
Fighting Force has great sound quality. The sound effects and music come through clear and clean. Unfortunately, the music is, well, a bit bland. This is no Yuzo Koshiro at the helm. All the songs blend together, so while you're playing the game, it sounds like you're hearing the exact same song. Now, on closer inspection, they are different songs, but that's a bad thing in my book. If you have to go back and listen to the entire soundtrack just so you can tell if this game has just one song or several. A good composer would make each of the stage's songs entirely different in tone and tempo to the other songs to help each level have its own character and theme to it. We give the final score on sound a mediocre 1-bit
and beer
out of 4. The graphics look pretty darn good, especially for a PlayStation game, which most of its game catalog has not aged well in the graphics department. All the playable characters have a unique look to them, as well as the bosses.
Unfortunately, the henchmen enemies and levels themselves did not get the same treatment, as you will run into the same enemies not just several times, but almost every time. As stated in the gameplay, the levels, while thematically are different, once you boil it down, it is the same design.
Aside from the intro to the title screen, the game gives you no cutscenes or plot to go off of. You just know the names of the protagonists, Mace, Hawk, Smasher, and Elena. And their antagonist, Dr. Zing, a scientist cult leader who believes the end of the world is happening, and when it doesn't, he uses his army to force the world to an end. It's never clearly stated how he intends to do that, but our band of heroes set off to stop him while the police just cordon off the stages and watch our heroes battle it out with Dr. Zing's armies. The manual gives us some insight into our characters, and just for fun, I'm going to let PlayStation here read you their bios.
Alright, so to make this short, Mace is a Lara Croft private investigator who recruits Hawk, the badass freedom fighter who is also a surrogate for boys who find Mace attractive, aka they just want her pussy. Then Hawk turns around and recruits Smasher, a sociopath with multiple prison sentences, and the prison rents Smasher out to Hawk for a wad of fucking cash. The final piece of the puzzle for Mace is Elena, a party girl who is the illegitimate drug-abused daughter of the antagonist. Whoa, genius writing here. So our heroes battle across the city, skies, and seas to Dr. Zing's island, where they put an end to this dastardly villain who never really poses a threat. I mean, you attack his building, he runs away, and the rest of the game is him defending himself from you. With this psychopathic, muscle-bound guy from prison with multiple murders. So yeah, you beat him up, arrest him, and blow up his base. We are left with an open ending with Dr. Zing in prison with the screen going black and the sound of the prison doors opening, hinting at a sequel. I don't think anyone could keep this guy in jail with an IQ of 300 plus. God help us.
While I think this game looks good, that doesn't do enough to make up for the bland characters and levels, not to mention the plot that was written by a 13-year-old who just discovered boobies. I give presentation 1 bit out of 4.
I give the presentation a half-warm beer with old cigs inside of it and a dead fly gasping for air out of 4.
I remember Fighting Force being a pretty darn good game with a lacking plot, but oh boy, what does 20 years and cracked nostalgia glasses do to one's perspective? Fighting Force has terrible gameplay mechanics and bland music and level designs. It's a poor spiritual successor to our beloved Streets of Rage. My final verdict for Fighting Force on the PS1 is recommended run the hell away. If you really want to play this game, the best way to do it is through emulation, and if you're still undeterred,
you can find it online for about $13.
Well guys, it's another review in the books. As always, stay safe and play on.
Great work, boys. I'm really proud of both of you. This is gonna be a beautiful friendship. You guys are doing great. Oh, look at this. Looks like the UPS guy is here with my package. Yeah, my Serial Killer Monthly and Anal Bondage Club of the Month box just showed up. I'll be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere. I killed myself.
Alright, he's gone. Alright, Sean, wasn't this fun playing video games again? Together?
Yeah, it wasn't all that bad. I've been stuck here a really long time, and this place has me always just focused on the shitty things in my life.
See, that's what this asshole does to you. Fucks with your mind. You have a family out there that actually somewhat tolerates you. They don't make you play shitty games like Fighting Force. They let you play some of the good games.
Yeah, my family does care about me. They wouldn't force me to review games. They would just let me do it if I pleased. They'd let me eat real popcorn, and they wouldn't let me shit in a fucking bucket. They'd let me shit in a real toilet.
Now you're back to your senses. So for right now, we're gonna play it cool. I have a plan to escape.
Whoa, wait. I've already tried to escape. It's impossible.
Well, I may not exactly know where we're at, but I know something that you don't know.
What's that?
I know who this fucker is, and we're gonna take him down.
Yeah, Donovan, let's do this. You son of a bitch! Oh, humbly bumbly, humbly bumbly, humbly bumbly.
Ah! No, Jason, you can't kill me. I'm still a virgin. Oh, Donovan,
Virgin?
Whew.
Dude, you have 2 fucking kids.
Yeah?
And this isn't Jason. This is Rick from Splatter House, one of the most iconic characters on the PC Engine.
Wait, what? Why are you wearing that anyway?
Because... Oh, I forgot. You've been down here for so long. It's one of the greatest times of the year.
Ooh, Christmas?
No, idiot. This is fucking Halloween.
Oh.
Happy Halloween, boys! Glad to see PlayStation is getting into the spirit of the holiday. Speaking of Halloween, Splatter House. That happens to be the game I have for you guys to review.
Oh, fuck yeah, I love that game. Dude, what's wrong?
I don't like scary games.
It's a PC Engine game. It's Splatter House.
Splatter House is a horror beat-em-up published and developed by Namco for the arcade. It was ported to the TurboGrafx 16, or PC Engine, on April 21st, 1990. Due to its violence and gore, the TurboGrafx 16 port of Splatter House had a parental advisory warning printed on the front of the box stating, "The horrifying theme of this game may be inappropriate for young children and cowards." Now, with a disclaimer like that, it had to piss off parents and make kids want to play this game even more. Like Streets of Rage 3 and a previous review of mine, Splatter House had censorship with some changes made in the Western version and the console port in general from the original arcade version. The overall violence and gore are toned down, there is less blood, and the sound effects are toned down as well. The weapon for the Stage 4 boss was changed from an axe to a golden meat cleaver. The crawling hand in Stage 5 no longer flashes the middle finger at you. The death of the womb boss of Stage 6 is changed from the spilling of embryonic fluids into a generic fiery explosion. The terror mask was changed from a white hockey mask to a red purplish hockey mask with black accents. This is to keep Rick, our protagonist, from looking too much like Jason Voorhees and avoiding some copyright infringement. The cathedral arches are removed from the Stage 4 boss chamber background, and the altar is removed from the following cutscene. The inverted cross boss of Stage 4 is replaced with a severed head. The final boss, Grave, has been changed from a wooden cross to a tombstone. This is actually in line with the common practice of censorship of crosses and religion when Japanese developers were releasing games to the West. Now, with these tidbits done, let's hack and maim our way into this review. Controls are pretty basic but solid. You can jump, punch, and kick. You can also perform a special attack where you will perform a drop kick that sends Rick skidding along the ground, damaging any enemies he hits. You can also perform a low kick and a low punch when crouched. Various weapons are placed in the levels for you to use, so keep an eye out for them as they give you an edge over just about everything that's in a level. Plus, they're very satisfying to use on the monsters. All the levels consist of walking left to right with the occasional auto-scrolling segments. Alternative pathways can be found through sections of the house. You can use these by falling down through holes or jumping up onto ladders. Levels end, of course, in a boss fight, and the boss fights are set up pretty well. Every boss, of course, has a certain pattern set up with them, and once this pattern is figured out, they are fairly easy to overcome. It's not till you get to about the last two boss fights that it becomes very hard. Splatter House uses checkpoints, so you won't have to start an entire level over if you die halfway or towards the end of it. While the gameplay isn't groundbreaking, it is put together very well, and more importantly, it's a lot of fun. I give Splatter House's gameplay 2 bits out of 4.
Yeah, I completely agree with 2-bit here. The controls are very basic, but at the same time I felt like it was very sluggish sometimes with the main character, which was a downside to me. Beyond that, the game is fun and excellent to play. I give this 3 beers out of 4.
The music here is very eerie and creepy. It captures perfectly the mood the game is going for. The sound effects have a nice touch, especially the squish sounds you get from hitting monsters into the background. I like this game's sound, but I wouldn't say it does anything out of the ordinary or anything that really caught my ear. All in all, Splatter House's sound gets a decent 2 bits out of 4.
I agree with everything that 2-bit said. 3 beers out of 4.
The graphics of Splatter House look awesome and holds up well for a game that honestly was a bridge console between 8-bit and 16-bit. The game really shows what the TurboGrafx 16, or I should say PC Engine, could do, and I think it stands up well against the early Sega Genesis games and absolutely surpasses the NES as far as graphical presentation is concerned. The reason I mention this is because the TurboGrafx 16 was meant to compete with the NES, but eventually ended up going head-to-head with the Sega Genesis. The plot starts off a little different on the TurboGrafx 16. The arcade version opens up with an animation of Rick and Jennifer, his girlfriend, running through the storm and into a mansion, followed by an exterior shot of the mansion and the sound of his girlfriend screaming.
Ah! What was that sound?
What are you talking about?
There is a scary girl screaming somewhere.
Yeah, that's part of the game.
No, not in the version I played. See, the version I played, it was a happy new married couple getting a brand new home with a pretty light show in the background. Ow! The turbo version opens up simply with the exterior of the mansion, an eerie theme playing, but no sound effects. The story is a little lacking compared to its arcade counterpart. It follows the original plot adequately, but due to censorship and limits to the system, some scenes are completely gone or altered, like the intro. The synopsis is as follows. 2 college students, your character Rick Taylor and his girlfriend Jennifer Willis, take refuge from a storm in West Mansion, a local landmark known as Splatter House, for the rumors of hideous experiments purportedly conducted there by Dr. West, a renowned and missing parapsychologist. As they enter the mansion, the door shuts behind them and Jennifer screams. Rick awakens in a dungeon under the mansion, having been resurrected thanks to the terror mask. The mask has attached itself to Rick, fusing with his body and transforming him into a second runner-up in a Jason Voorhees lookalike contest. You then take Rick on a rampage through the dungeon and the mansion grounds, killing hordes of monsters. Later in the game, you find Jennifer on a couch surrounded by monsters that retreat once you arrive.
Just like the girls in your life.
Jennifer transforms into a giant monster and attempts to kill you while begging for you to help her.
Just like your ex-wives.
You are forced to kill her, and then she transforms back to normal and thanks you just before she dies.
Say something, I dare you.
You then track the remaining monsters to a giant bloody hole in the mansion's floor. You discover that the mansion is alive as you follow a bloody hallway to the house's womb, which produces fetus monsters. Ugh. You destroy the womb, which causes the house to burst into flames as it dies. Escaping the burning mansion, you come across a grave marker. The Terror Mask revives a giant monster under this grave marker, which is the game's final boss. Once it is destroyed, this monster unleashes a tormented ghost that dissipates into a series of bright lights. Once this light show is done, the Terror Mask shatters into pieces, turning Rick back into normal. Your character flees as the house burns to the ground and the credits roll. The plot is so-so, and definitely the main draw of this game is its gore, but at least there was effort put into the story, where a lot of games in this era didn't even try to have a coherent narrative. With awesome graphics, especially the gore and monsters, and I would say a decent to mediocre plot, presentation gets 2 bits. Out of 4.
The story is very basic, but it's enjoyable, and I think it worked well with this genre, especially with the gore and how much they got away with the censors during this time period. I'd give this game 3 beers out of 4.
Splatter House is a decent game with some solid controls. It also has some gruesome characters and scenery, with an eerie soundtrack laid on top of it all to make it a worthwhile game. Though ultimately I feel the game's a novelty, as other games in the genre did it better. But Splatter House was the first and did a decent job of it. So my final verdict for Splatter House is a must-play and own for the casual and collector of the TurboGrafx 16 and PC Engine. This game truly showed what the PC Engine was capable of.
And you can find this game online for about $40 to $70.
Well guys, that's it for this review. Happy Halloween, and as always, stay safe and play on!
Wonderful, boys. Another successful Halloween review in the bag, and the fans will surely be pleased. Now, if you don't mind, I've got some trick-or-treaters. What should I give them? Anthrax? I got some razor blades. No, that's not bad enough. Oh, copies of Batman vs. Superman. Perfect. I'm really fucking evil.
Alright, he's gone. So there's a pattern. If he follows the same tropes as your channel does, then pretty soon we'll be doing a review of Home Alone on the Sega Genesis.
Wait a minute, how do you know that?
Well, because the script says so.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, so we need to convince him to let us set up traps around his house. Only problem is that we need blueprints for his residence.
Oh, you mean these blueprints?
Did you just pull that plot point? I mean, blueprints out of your ass?
Well,
All right, boys. Time for your sleepy medicine. You got a long day tomorrow. And a special friend is coming by, so you're gonna need all the rest you can get. What is that you say? Oh yeah, play on and stay safe. Nighty-night.
Wait, that's not what I said. I'm supposed to say.
Happy Thanksgiving, boys. In homage to this great American holiday where we celebrate committing genocide against Native Americans and innocent helpless birds, I decided you boys should review the great college pastime of foosball. Well, since my brother Floyd is too busy sniffing glue in the corner to help me move the foosball table down into the dungeon, I've decided that instead, 2-Bit, you're going to review Tecmo Bowl for the NES. This is going to be wonderful. Not to mention, this is what you should have reviewed instead of Smash TV.
Good. I have a lot to say about fucking football.
I actually have a different plan for that.
What are we doing here?
Sorry, Play Satan, but you're getting kind of stale. What, with all your negativity and bland childish humor?
No. We're not gonna be doing this. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Bye, Play Satan!
Besides, his ex-wives have been bothering me about his alimony, and I need him off my back. Now, meet your partner for this review. The prolific, the talented, the unmatched Woody! Oh, and don't bother asking him for help. All of his lines are pre-recorded, so just go with it.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Woody. I got this instant message from an unknown person that says I either have to review this game I've never played or everyone I love is going to die. So, looks like I'm going to review this game I've never played. I have not played it, but I love my family, so let's jump right in.
Wait, that doesn't make any sense. How does he...
Just sit back, do the review, and try not to think about it too hard.
Tecmo Bowl is a football arcade game published and developed by Tecmo, originally released in arcades in 1987. It was ported to the Nintendo Entertainment System in February of 1989. There are some noticeable differences between the original version and the NES port. For one, the arcade supported 4 players, where the NES only supports 2. And the original only has 2 teams that you can play, where the NES version has 12. Tecmo did not have the NFL's consent to use real team names. The only thing that Tecmo Bowl's teams could represent from the actual NFL teams was by their home city or state. Tecmo Bowl does, however, have each NFL team's roster, mimicking the players and their stats. Tecmo Bowl does not have every NFL team mimicked in the game. They opted to use the 12 most popular teams in the NFL at the time. These teams, of course, are the Indianapolis Colts, Miami Dolphins, Cleveland Browns, Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks, Los Angeles Raiders, Washington's offensive Native American slur, San Francisco 49ers, Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, Chicago Bears, and Minnesota Vikings. Due to Tecmo Bowl's success, its sequel, Super Tecmo Bowl, acquired the NFL licenses.
With those tidbits finished, let's touch down into this review.
The controls are excellent. They are very responsive, with no lag in them. Tecmo Bowl follows the rules of American football. Now, I'm not going to dedicate an entire section on how to play football or the rules of football. Suffice to say, the team with the ball has to score and the team without the ball has to stop that team so they can get the ball and try to score. Tecmo Bowl does feel a lot more fast-paced and frantic than how actual American football is played. This is due to the arcade style that personally notches up the fun factor for me. For example, with the right play and your opponent making a mistake, you can easily score a 60 to 90 yard touchdown in one play. The game has 3 modes: player versus computer, player versus player, and coach mode that allows 2 players to choose the plays, but the computer executes them. Speaking of choosing plays, the playbook consists of 4 plays chosen by a button combination on your controller. When on defense, you select a play anticipating what the other player on offense chose. If you guessed correctly, it results in the collapse of an offensive line and well-covered receivers, setting you up to either get a sack or interception. This game is played on the honor system, and many a player have betrayed this system by looking over and seeing what their opponent is selecting on their controller.
Hey man, stop looking at my controller!
I wasn't cheating. I was I was admiring your lovely knuckle hairs.
Hey, wait a minute. I thought you were pre-recorded.
Didn't you say not to think about it too hard?
As stated in the tidbits, Tecmo Bowl resembles the stats and players of the real-world teams. In particular, the Raiders' Bo Jackson is near unstoppable in this game. You can cream just about every team in the game with this one powerful player. With the frantic arcade-style play and simplified playbook, makes this game easy to pick up and enjoy. This game is a shining example of excellent game mechanics. Tecmo Bowl's gameplay gets 4 bits out of 4.
I agree with everything that was said. I'm willing to comply with all the requests. 4 bits out of 4? Please don't kill my family. 4 bits. Okay, 4 bits!
The sound is done well, the music really pumps you up, and I think the voice work is done pretty well, especially for an NES title. Now, it's not much, just the players saying hut hut and an announcer saying touchdown, but it's a nice little addition that I think goes the extra mile. I will say this one critique about the music: it's not something I would play outside of the game, so while it works well for Tecmo Bowl, on its own merits it's decent, but nothing to write home about. Tecmo Bowl sound gets 2 bits out of 4.
I love the sound in this game. The sound in this game is great. It's almost as good as the sound of my children laughing. I love that sound a lot more, so I really want to hear it again. So the 2 bits out of 4. Yeah, 2 bits out of 4. Same what you said.
This game is bright and colorful. The sprites and background really pop out at you. Not much level design here, as it's a football game, or in general a sports game, so pretty straightforward. The teams all have their own unique colors, and if they are the home team, the end zone has the team's colors and logo. You get a nice scoreboard in between quarters and a little cutscene for halftime. Tecmo Bowl really captures the look and feel of a football game for the 8-bit era. One weird thing I did notice about the game is when Bo Jackson of the Raiders or Walter Payton of the Bears scored a touchdown, it would show 2 white dudes high-fiving. Now in the game, the sprite of Payton and Jackson are black. I think it's obvious that the development team just recycled the same cutscene of characters and only changed their uniform colors. I don't think it would have taken that much work to change the skin color of the players as well. I chalk it up to error on the developer's part. Besides that one little quirk, I feel Tecmo Bowl perfectly captures the look and feel of a football game done with an arcade flair. Tecmo Bowl's presentation gets 3 bits out of 4.
I think I saw a video about Tecmo Bowl one time. It looked fine, I guess. I don't know what else to say other than 3 bits out of 4. And my 10th wedding anniversary was going to be this year. And I'm just really scared that I'm not going to be able to celebrate it. So yeah, 3 bits out of 4. 3 bits out of 4.
Tecmo Bowl is an excellent game, and dare I say a great game, especially for parties or for competitive play for when your friends come over to visit. My final verdict for Tecmo Bowl on the NES is a must-buy and get for the casual and hardcore collector of the NES. You can find it online for around $8, and I honestly think that's kind of a steal for such a wonderful game as Tecmo Bowl. Anyway guys, that's it for this review. I hope you have a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. As always, stay safe and play on.
Good job, both of you. I'm always satisfied with your work. Especially you, Woody. Nothing against you, Woody. Play Satan's gonna come back. Once he's done dodging his ex-wives and spreading chlamydia, that is.
So this was fun, and again, I don't want anybody that I love to be harmed, so I held up my end of the bargain. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the internet.
I'm a man of my word, so your family's gonna be delivered back to you in several small packages. Why am I even talking to you? All your lines were pre-recorded before I killed you. But check out his YouTube videos anyway. I guess they're kind of okay. Now get some rest. Your next review will be the big finale.
Oh boy, I sure do love watching Shrek over and over again. Though, I wish Play Satan could join us.
No, he's too negative. Even with the greatest movie ever made, he'll find something negative to say about it. Don't worry, he's in the dungeon playing with his balls.
All these fucking video games, and he gives me this pink ball to play with. What is this, The Great Escape or something?
So, Mr. X, I was thinking since you mentioned that we're going to be reviewing Home Alone on the Sega Genesis that, I don't know, it's kind of a stupid idea, but I thought that maybe, you would let us set some traps around your house? Maybe let us act out some scenes from the movie?
Well, maybe it's the wine, or maybe it's the Xanax that Floyd gave me, but I'm feeling gracious, so sure, you can set up some traps. If we get to use them on Play Satan, that is. I hate that guy.
A few minutes later.
I want all your money.
Hey, Play Satan, what the hell is that? It's icky. It's like spoiled warm milk. Ugh.
That is where I like to keep my milk.
Why the hell are you keeping it there? Mr. X has provided us a perfectly functional fridge that also spews out poison gas.
Well, because that's where the ladies like to lick it up.
Wait,
you want to try it?
Hell no! What ladies? There's no... We're getting sidetracked here. I came here to tell you I just talked with Mr. X, and he says he's going to allow us to set traps around the house for the Home Alone review.
Perfect. Our plan's coming to fruition. First off, we're going to... Oh, shit.
Hey, Mr. X.
Hi.
Hey boys, it's time for your review. And today, in keeping with tradition and 2-Bit's promise to the audience, you're going to be reviewing Home Alone on the Sega Genesis.
Home Alone on Sega Genesis is a side-scrolling and top-down platformer published by Sega and developed by Brian A. Rice Inc. It was released on the Genesis in 1992. Home Alone is a licensed game tie-in to the movie of the same name. I was not able to dig up much in the way of tidbits, however, I was able to find this quote from Mega Magazine's Amanda Dyson, and Play Satan will paraphrase it here for you.
The game was a wasted film license and was a grotesquely overpriced, pathetic, underdeveloped mockery of a game.
And another magazine, Megatech, said, "This game would only appeal to junior players."
Whoa, now those are some harsh words from reviewers from the past. Let's see if Home Alone on Sega Genesis is deserving of this criticism, or was it shortchanged by reviewers of its day?
Spoilers, it wasn't. Either way, let's review this game, ya filthy animals.
Home Alone's gameplay on Sega Genesis seems to take a different approach than its NES and SNES counterparts. Instead of protecting just the McAllister home, you must protect all the homes in the neighborhood while waiting 20 minutes for the police to arrive or 40 minutes on expert mode.
Which is typical for the police, they're really crazy.
During the game, the Wet Bandits Harry and Marv drive around in their serial killer van till they reach a house they want to rob.
I'm surprised they don't have free ice cream for the children on the side of the van.
In this part of the game, you are in a top-down view of the entire neighborhood, riding in a sled where you can collect items hidden in snowmen and keep an eye on where the Wet Bandits van is headed. You have a charge bar that speeds up your sled, but use it sparingly because once it's empty, you'll have a hard time moving around the neighborhood. The object of the game is to defend every house in the neighborhood until the timer runs out.
Remember that classic scene from Home Alone where he defends all the houses in the neighborhood?
You do this by collecting resources to craft weapons and set traps inside homes. When in a house, the game first lets you choose where to place your traps. You have a limited amount to use sparingly for all 5 homes in the neighborhood. The game then switches to a side-scrolling platformer. You must fight off Harry and Marv with crafted weapons and traps. Harry and Marv have a pain meter that will fill up by attacking them, or them falling into one of your traps. Once filled, they will run away while being taunted by Kevin. There's also non-hazards in the game such as cats, ghosts, robots, and collapsing floors.
Of course, I remember that great scene where the robot and the ghost were fighting each other over the virginity of Kevin.
Okay, yeah, well, these also provide an obstacle for you and the wet bandits. There is another meter, the loot meter, which is how much swag the bandits have taken from the house. Once this meter is full, the house will be flooded, the wet bandits' calling card, of course. You will be unable to re-enter the house again, but on the flip side, that house won't be able to be robbed again either. If all the homes end up flooded, it's game over. You start with a BB gun with weak attack, but once you start crafting weapons out of the items you find in the neighborhood and its homes, you can really take it to the bandits. Each gun has a specific and limited ammunition, but when you collect the crafting item for the ammo, it will refill your supply. You can also disassemble your weapons except for the BB gun. This allows you to create a new weapon if your current one isn't working out for you. If you get captured by Marv or Harry, it's not game over. Instead, you are hung up on the wall while they continue their looting. Tapping the action button repeatedly will cut you loose and you can continue your attack on the bandits. As stated earlier, you must run out the clock on the bandits until the police arrive.
As stated earlier, the police must arrive.
On beginner mode, that's 20 minutes, and expert, 40. The only major difference in these modes is of course the length, and in expert mode you have access to much more powerful weapons. The controls handle pretty well. The only issue I have is Kevin's jump is a bit stiff, and I had issues not being able to jump over my own traps because of the jump mechanics. That aside, the controls handled well. Home Alone on Sega Genesis seems to have taken the fun and strategy of placing traps and evading capture from the wet bandits in the NES version and combined that with the platforming and run and gun of Home Alone on the SNES. Lastly, they added their own twist with crafting your own weapons. Home Alone on Sega Genesis has without a doubt the best gameplay of these movie tie-in games. That said, it gets very repetitive, especially in the 40-minute long expert mode, which even with more weapons and an enhanced ending ultimately isn't worth it. Gameplay for Home Alone on Sega Genesis gets 2 bits.
Oh no!
Out of 4.
I mostly agree with 2-bit, except for that one thing. But, of course, you know what that thing is. I give this 1.5 out of 4 beers. The sound is limited. There are not many standout sound effects. In fact, some sound exactly like the SNES version.
Now where the Genesis stands out is its soundtrack. Every area has its own theme, and each one makes itself feel very different in tone from the rest of the game, whether it be the futuristic house or the abandoned house. The songs I feel are well done, but it's not something I would rock out to on the way to work, but the music is well composed, perfectly placed, and adds to the immersion of this game. Sound gets an above average 3.5 bits.
Oh no!
Out of 4.
I agree with him. 3.5 beers out of 4.
The game looks great. There are only 3 characters in the game, Kevin, Marv, and Harry, but they all look just like their movie counterparts.
How dare you? I disagree with you. Harry does not look like his counterpart. He's walking around with that brown hair that looks like every average man and a trench coat. It could have been his father. I mean, his father in the first one wore a trench coat and had brown hair. You don't know who he is.
Yeah, that's true, but at least the game world reflects the movie very well.
There's a futuristic house with ghosts and robots.
Oh yeah, so I guess not so much. I can't think of any area of this game's graphical presentation, well, aside from being nitpicky, that falls...
I will be nitpicky, alright? First off, you have blue walls on, light blue, by the way, on dark blue background, and then you take these little orange dots to set the traps. That is the most boring presentation I've ever seen. That is like mediocre. Besides the platforming parts, No, it's not that great looking. And again, I'm going back to Harry. He looks like shit.
Well, I mean, I like the blue. I think it brightens up the screen and, happiness as you set your happy little traps to get those dastardly wet bandits.
Another issue is there's a severe lack of cutscenes.
But I don't think they were really needed, but I agree they could have been the icing on the cake for the gameplay. The Genesis version has a slightly different take on the movie's plot. As said in the gameplay section, Kevin is defending his entire neighborhood from the wet bandits instead of just his house. Aside from that, it follows the movie's plot very well.
Yeah, guys, remember that awesome scene of Kevin luring Marv and Harry into a poltergeist house?
Yeah, as PlayStation said, there's also a futuristic house that I assume is Kevin's mad scientist neighbor, a much larger home with a basement and an attic. This house also has a feral cat, and finally an abandoned collapsing house. Which I beg to ask, why would the wet bandits want to rob and flood an abandoned house that is falling apart?
Or a house that has poltergeist in it, because they're already all dead.
I mean, it would have been picked clean years ago by other people. This house doesn't make any sense. It has no place in this world aside from the fact that maybe this would be Kevin's fallback area if the wet bandits were hot on his heels. That said, the level design in these homes are very basic, but they need to be because the main object of the game is defending the homes and strategically placing your traps for the bandits. Now moving on to the endings of the game, when you beat the game on beginner, if you have protected all 5 homes, a cop car pulls up behind the bandits' van and the cops arrest them with the game telling you to try expert mode. If you save all 5 homes in expert mode, the ending is the same except you have 2 police cars and a helicopter showing up to apprehend the bandits. Talk about excessive force, and a shitty payoff for all of your hard work. Home Alone on Sega Genesis is definitely a huge step above the NES version's presentation, and matches, or in my opinion, surpasses the SNES in many aspects aside from the absent cutscenes and zero payoff to the game's ending.
This game had so much potential, but they wasted it on plain blue backgrounds during strategic moments. A strategy that could have really enhanced the game, but instead they resorted to basic platforming. And of course the 40-minute gameplay just to get 2 police cars and a helicopter at the ending, which is a fucking waste of goddamn time.
So we give the Sega Genesis version of Home Alone's presentation 1.5 bits.
Oh no!
And beers out of 4. Home Alone on Sega Genesis was a refreshing experience compared to the subpar ones that I experienced on the NES and SNES Home Alone versions. It seems like the developer took notes from the failures of those 2 versions while they were crafting this title. This game was not deserving of the harsh critiques it received from reviewers of the day, though I feel they were not too far off the mark of this game's shortcomings. My final verdict for Home Alone on the Sega Genesis is a recommended look for the casual and a possible buy, I stress possible buy, for the hardcore collector of the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive.
And you can find this online for about $7 to $10, but in my opinion, I think that's a little overpriced.
And while yes, this is a fun game, I feel like once you beat it, you'll be putting the game back on the shelf and probably not taking it off again. Well guys, that's it for this review. I hope you have a safe and wonderful holiday season and enjoy time with your family. Call us out, please.
Alright. And as always, stay safe and play on.
A few minutes later.
Good job, boys, but it's time to get you back into the dungeon. Say hello to your old pal, the Cattle Prod.
Hey, wait! We didn't get to use the traps on PlayStation yet!
Oh, yes, you're right. I'm gonna enjoy seeing him suffer more.
Aha! With these scissors that I got from 2-Bit earlier, I can escape.
I'll be back for you later.
Wait, no!
I'm up here, moron. Come and get me.
Huh?
You had enough, or you thirsty for more?
think he's dead.
He can't be dead. We had so many more traps to do.
Oh. Yeah, he's definitely dead.
Yeah. A paint can going at a person's head at full velocity would probably do that.
So, you want to go home?
Yeah, let's get out of here.
6.5 hours later.
Hey, I'm 2-Bit Jesus, and I'm gonna review Splatoon 2. I can't see in this scene.
Girls, I'm back!
Dad, leave us alone. We're doing a review. Yeah! Go away!
It's great to be home.
Two-Bit, there was a time, not long ago, where you lost what you once had. But now, your purpose has returned. You're reunited with your family, and the love and heartache that gaming brought to your life has been rejuvenated. Hopefully, what I've done here is teach you that games bring joy to our lives, but also sometimes pain and suffering. Let this be a reminder of why games are good, what makes even the mediocre games great, and why we play. We spend our money and our time and our lives creating fandoms and art, why we create cliques, fan clubs, and communities. Why we have long friendships based on worlds that we create for each other. This is why we love games. This is what drives us and motivates us, and you can thank me for giving it back to you. But remember, if you ever stray from that righteous path again, I will be there, for I am the darkness. I am the night. I am Mr. X. I'm Mr. X, and that's who I am. And you're welcome.
Take one, final verdict.
Final Fantasy.
My final fantasy.
My final verdict for Fantasy Zone on the Sega Master System. Fantasy Zone for the Sega Master System is a really fun game. I did stuff to it that I'm not proud of.
Where did Kevin Spacey taught you Fantasy Zone? That's gonna have to go into the blooper.
I did some stuff to it that I'm not too proud of. Fantasy.
Hey, God, knock it off.
Alright. Yeah. Alright, be safe and play on. What the one is my dad? Hello? Who's there? What's this? No. No, I don't go online. Too much about Hillary Clinton on there. I got some Kool-Aid if you want it, dog breath.
2, 3, go.
At first, I thought he was insane, but then he made me realize the rest of the world is insane.
Insane? Are you insane? What if he's trying to kill us? Or worse, rape our buttholes?
Do that, no, please.
The rest of the world? What the fuck are you talking about? You're the one that's insane. You don't know this guy's intentions. What if he's trying to kill us? Or even worse, rape our buttholes?
Okay, let's see what we're doing.
Mace may play like Blaze? She may look like Blaze, but she's not my fucking Blaze.
Are you okay? I'm trying to keep the hit button going.
Ace may play like Blaze, she may look like Blaze, but she's not my fucking Blaze.
Not bad. You idiot. God. You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. Got hurt.
Alright, he's gone. Alright.
What's me doing the double act? Fucking you up.
It's just me. It's just me. I completely forgot my lines. I was thinking about the blueprints. I was thinking about the fucking blueprints. I've noticed the pattern. I've noticed the pattern. Noticed the pattern. If he keeps the same tropes as you do on your channel, then that means we'll be reviewing Home Alone for the Sega Genesis soon. Genesis. Alright, he's gone. Alright, I've noticed the pattern. If he does it 1, 2, 3. Alright, he's gone. I've noticed the pattern. If he does the same tropes that he does as you do on your fucking show, like
Like a crypt keeper.
Tales from the crypt.
What was that sound?
What are you talking about?
There is a scary girl screaming somewhere.
Yeah, that's part of the game.
No, not in the version I played. See, the version I played, it was a happy new married couple getting a brand new home with a pretty light show in the background. Ow! My titty.
Perfect.
Splatter House is a decent game with some solid controls and gruesome characters and scenery with an eerie soundtrack laid on top of it all. Makes this a really worthwhile game, and you fucked up the line, Sean. You fucked it up because you're a fuck up and you'll never amount to anything.
Well, that's why you're on YouTube.
Yes. And we're getting
Because
demonetized.
all you fuck ups on YouTube suck.
Alright, let's go.
Alright, he's gone. So I've noticed a pattern. So, there's a trope to your show. There's a trope. There's a trope on your show. He's a troll trope.
I think that was it.
You want to do one more where we accidentally kiss?
No. You want to do one more where we get naked and fuck each other? On accident? We're not gay.
Wipe him in the butthole.
We're not gay. Because it's on accident.
I accidentally slipped my dick in your butthole.
And covered it.
Why? Alright.
Alright, that's it for Splatter House.
It says here that Tecmo Bowl does feel a lot more fast-paced and frantic than how actual American football is played, and this is due to its arcade style that, for me personally, notches up the fun factor for me, and as with the right play, and your opponent making a mistake and you can easily score a 60 to 90 yard touchdown in one play. Please don't kill my mother. Speaking of choosing plays, the playbook consists of 4 plays chosen by a button combination on your controller. When on defense, you select a play anticipating what the player on offense chooses. If you guessed correctly, it results in a collapse of the offensive line and well-covered receivers, setting you up to either get sacked or get an interception. My wife is my world, please don't slit her throat.
Oh, technical. I have a lot to say about football.
Technical.
No. We're not gonna do this right here.
I don't know what he's worried about. I never contacted his family. Let's see. I don't know what he's worried about. I never touched his family. killed him. He's dead. He's dead. They're dead. Everyone's dead. I'm a fucking psycho.
Yeah, that guy really finds something wrong with everything. Such great works of art, such as fucking blah 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 blah. I mean, he would find something wrong.
Okay, I got it. Alright, 1, 2, 3. This popcorn is burned and tastes like fucking shit. 1, 2, action.
Just sitting here by myself, drinking my wine, as we horse people do.
We got a few more scenes.
That's what we do alone.
Hey Donovan, you're delirious from suffocation.
No, this is how I talk now.
This is going to be in the bloopers. Okay.
Yeah. That was perfect. We can probably just cut that.
There's another meter, the loot meter, which is how much swag the bandits have taken from the house. Once
swag, is that what it's called?
That's where I put in there.
Okay, that's pretty good. I like that. Okay, go. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh about that. Go on. I've never read your scripts.
I haven't either.
You're racist.
Those damn wet bandits.
Helicopters. Hey, why the? They literally called in. You know how expensive it is to fill up a helicopter with fucking fuel? Like,
to catch two
random burglars.
By the way, not good at their job.
No, they're the most like, hey, let me just basically put my fingerprint all over the scene.
A 6-year-old.
A 6-year-old. And an old man with a shovel.
The guy's like, we gotta get the helicopter in the air.
Get it in the air. Even though we know exactly where they're at, and we could just send a car over there and problem solved.
Like we did in beginner mode.
No, send in helicopters because they beat it in 40 minutes instead of 20.
It took us 40 minutes to get there instead of 20.
Because they were filling up the fucking helicopter with fuel. Bloopers. Yeah. Yeah, you make America great again. Perfect!
Nobody's a Bill O'Reilly.
Can I see him right there? Bill O'Reilly. Yeah, you kill Reagan. Make America great again.
Alright, play Satan.
What do you want me to do?
Weird that you're
Would you? Would you want to sip up your tea?
You want me to wait until you finish and then come into the scene?
No, I want you to interrupt me. It's funny. Yeah, Bill O'Reilly. Make America great again.
Alright, play Satan. So, I got Mr. X to agree to let us set up traps around the house. I sure hope this plan of yours works. This time.
Wait. Hold on. Actually. Yeah, Bill O'Reilly. You make America great again.
Alright, it's like, whoa! Ew, something ooky right there. So, I got Mr. X to agree to let us set up traps around the house for the Home Alone review. I sure hope this review of yours works.
It's gonna work because it's a review and it's scripted!
Alright.
Saturation he's got like from here to like here. 8 hours seen him be jacked off.